Good evening, everyone. The listening session is now being called to order. Kelly Douglas, please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Shoemaker.
Here.
Director Wyatt.
Here.
Vice Chair Vidal.
Here.
Director Salvaggio. Thank you. Director Sloop. Excuse me, Chair Sloop.
This is Chair Sloop, and I am here.
Thank you so much.
Good evening again, everyone. I would first like to thank Meridian Creek Middle School for hosting the second listening session tonight, and thank our attendees most of all for being here on a Wednesday evening when you all could be home with your families. Thank you so much. I would like to give great appreciation to Con and Andrew and their team for all of their technology expertise for keeping us going during this meeting tonight. Chair Kelly Sloop, as you heard, is attending the meeting virtually this evening. Before we get started with the listening session, I will read announcements on Chair Sloop's behalf. I'm going to read this evening's format, review the evening's format and share public comment procedures. So we have a shared understanding of what will occur this evening. We have read your emails and we appreciate you sharing your concerns, your frustrations, and your suggestions. And we heard you on Monday night, and we are listening tonight as well. I'm going to check in with Andrew. Is the media present tonight? No, there is no media present tonight, just for everyone's knowledge. Now I will go into tonight's format. So the format for tonight's listening session is that the board members, we are going to provide remarks first tonight, and then you all will give public comment to us. After we provide our remarks, we'll have the privilege to listen to everyone who signs up to speak. And you can do that on the clipboards located as you walk into the room, and those lists will be handed to Director Wyatt and myself. Director Wyatt and I will be facilitating the public comment this evening. We're going to be calling 4 speakers at a time. The first speaker will step up to the mic, and then the 3 other speakers will sit, let's say 4 speakers at a time, divide amongst yourselves, amongst these 2 mics. And we respectfully ask that everyone keeps their remarks to 3 minutes. So as you can see, there is a very large timer located behind us. We can see a timer to the side of us. You're also going to hear a beep at the end of 3 minutes. Now, the first listening session on Monday went 4 hours long. We ask that you please keep your remarks to 3 minutes so that we may all get home to our families at a reasonable hour this evening. We also ask that you please not clap, boo, cheer, or heckle during the listening session. Not only is this respectful to those who are speaking, but it further lengthens the listening session. We understand that signs are a part of freedom of speech, but we ask that you please place your signs so that they are down so that everyone can see the speakers. Now I'm going to read some public comment processes for this evening. Thank you for taking time from your day to share with us your voice and take part in informing the school board of your opinions, thoughts, or recommendations regarding district action. Your involvement is valued and appreciated. If you wish to make public comment Oh, I already mentioned this. You can make you can sign up at the table over here. Um, I wanted to remind everyone that at this time, we will be using your public comment to gather information rather than engage in a dialogue. So we please ask that you not mistake our silence for a lack of interest or care. We are listening carefully and taking notes. If you are asking the district or board to respond or provide information, please provide your contact information with us, and the appropriate person will follow up with you. The public comment time is not a forum for singling out individual district employees or students for complaints. And if this occurs, we will ask you to please stop making remarks. Again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And a written version of public comments can also be made to us via email, or you may mail them in. So next, we are now going to hear from the Board of Directors. Director Shoemaker, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We get a chance to hear from the community in these sessions. I think it's fair that you should have a sense for some of the things we're thinking. So I'm just going to share some of my thoughts. Some of this will be a repeat of what I said last night, but it was pretty late last night by the time we got to our comments when everyone was done. We have lost enrollment in this district. That's clear. We have about 80% of the elementary enrollment that we had in 2019. With that comes a pretty significant loss of dollars. We get by far the biggest source of revenue for us by far is the state money. The state equalizes the money, so we send our property taxes essentially to the state for schools, and the schools then give districts the same amount per student across the state. So if we don't keep exactly those dollars. With significantly less revenue and with fewer students, we're asking questions about how do we deal with that? What does it look like to pare down as a district? We've talked about enrollment, and we've talked about elementary schools, and we've talked about what is a reasonable size for elementary schools. I heard a lot from our community that they've believed this sort of 300 to 400 number within a school is a good number to work with. And I've heard, and I appreciate the folks who have shown us some national research that talks about that. I want you to know that Oregon does not fund with a school size in mind. That's not part of their calculation. And if you look at the way other districts choose school size, you'll find that some did, and I'm going to talk about just briefly about some of the districts that are similarly supported, right? Pass bonds and levies. Taggart-Tualatin just passed a $400 and whatever million bond. Their average elementary size is well over 400. Sherwood is over 400. Lake Oswego averages 375. Right now, if you take our elementaries, divide into the number of students, we come to 337. That's significantly smaller than what we see around, and there's a reason for that. There's more costs associated with having more schools. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge to think about that. And so that's one of the things we're thinking about. That doesn't mean we're not thinking about many, many other ways that we can save money. But that's the idea of paring down the number of elementaries is part of the discussion. I think I'll just stop at that.
Director Wyatt.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. So to date, I have received 116 emails from 94 people, and on Monday night we heard from 43 people. And I mention that because hearing from you has really, it's been the driver behind the information that we're requesting, the information that you'll hear presented in staff reports. And so I just want to make that really clear that when you have a question or you ask for something, we're here to get that for you and build that into our analysis. And so just really quickly, I just want to make sure that that you know that on your behalf and as a board, we have requested and have incorporated into the district website, into the frequently asked questions document, the following items. The first is an expression of school consolidations and program suspensions in FTE reductions, a detailed breakdown of the Mandarin program cost, a detailed breakdown of preschool program costs, options to get a second opinion on enrollment projections, questions about the historic experiences with preschool consolidation versus suspension, a confirmation of the timeline of this consolidation discussion from January till now, legal opinions about the uses of capital bond funds if schools are consolidated, estimates for Westland primary school sizes if consolidation occurs, and then the full flow analytics report, including the projection assumptions. So again, this information is either already on the website, is coming to the website soon, and will be part of our thinking and analysis. So the thing I'd like to emphasize before we start this evening is the policy decision in front of us. And this is about closing a $10 million hole in our budget. We started the school year with over 250 kids less than the year before. And so this $10 million hole in our budget will occur because of actual enrollment. This is not based on projections or what might happen. And as Director Shoemaker mentioned, when the state distributes money, it will be less because we have less kids. So the policy question that we are thinking through is not, do we want small schools? Because the answer there is always yes. There's no school board member in this country that doesn't strive for small schools. And we know in a perfect financial situation, we would want that for every school. So the question really becomes, in my mind, if we want to have small classes in the schools that are open. Because if we don't find a way to save money and potentially consolidate schools, we will need to look to more teacher layoffs in the upcoming year. And this is around 35 or more positions. It's really important to me this evening that this session remain respectful and mindful of decorum. I think there's a statistic that public speaking is like the #1 biggest fear that people have. And so I know that speaking in front of crowds is not everyone's cup of tea. So if you're not frequently testifying in meetings, or if you're not a former drama kid or speech and debate kid, getting up and talking can be really scary. And I have heard recently from some parents that they're nervous to talk in these settings because of backlash if they have an opinion different than a group of people in the audience. So I know Director Vidal mentioned we don't want you to clap or grandstand because it's just about respect. Everyone's voice matters, everyone's opinion matters. And so I think you maybe remember what it felt like back in the day, where if you presented in class and no one cheered for you, but they cheered for another kid, it didn't feel great. We often ask our at our public meetings to mirror what we teach in our classrooms. So let's be respectful of each other. I am really interested in seeing the Mandarin program continue. Both of my kids are in dual language and Spanish dual language, and I know the value of biliteracy and bilingualism. I know it's a commitment that we make. I really want the folks that are in that program to complete the survey. We need data points to understand what the future of that program looks like. And so if you're thinking, I'm not going to complete the survey, I'm mad at the district, that's giving us a data point that actually is telling us that the program doesn't matter. So we really want you to complete that survey. Lastly, I said this on Monday, and I want to make it clear to this audience as well. I want to apologize for my vote in January that implied that we were making a 2-year decision. In retrospect, as a student and practitioner of public administration and public policy, this was just really irresponsible. First, we were making revenue assumptions that were speculative based on a legislative biennial budget and our lobbying efforts. And so many people, even in this room, were helping with that. And we were so optimistic that we were going to get more money from the state. And that didn't happen. And then also, In May of this year, we had 3 positions on this board up for election. And so for us to make a policy decision that would have tied the hands of a potentially new board is just really bad practice. And then lastly, just the nature of this work means that we have to adapt and adjust to data and timelines. Public budgeting is messy, it's not linear. And so for us to assume that we could foresee revenues 2 years out was just irresponsible. And so I do want to apologize. I've heard from many of you that sticking to your word is important. I hear you. I value that you do that in your commitment to us as a district. And I would like us to do the same back to you. So thank you.
Director Salvaggio.
Hello, everyone. Just a few notes, and I know that I see a lot of faces from 2 nights ago, so I don't want to restate everything, but I also see some new faces, so I'm going to restate some of it. K-12 districts in Oregon are at a weird place financially, not only at this moment in time, but just policy-wise. We are in large part at the mercy of a number of outside forces when it comes to our own revenues. As Director Shoemaker noted, most of it comes from the state. And the money that does come from the state is weighted according to a tax rate that constitutionally cannot be changed. Another big part of it is local planning and land use policies. Residential development. We are at the mercy of a number of county and municipal ordinances. So little of our revenue is under our own control. And so we do what we can with what we have. And I think that everyone here understands that. And I want to thank you for the level that you've been participating at, because the far majority of the comments that I've received so far and continue to receive are not people asking for the moon. It's people that are coming with solutions and inquiries and dollar figures and options. And I'm very proud of the fact that our district's engagement is built around facts and inquiry, as opposed to just shaking fists. So thank you for that. I don't think there's anyone here that expects us to, magically make 2 + 2 = 5. And for the younger kids in the audience, that's not what it equals. So thank you for your understanding. I've been transparent about my own priorities and thought process. I know that we're still waiting on some complete data. I don't expect to make decisions on things until we have that. I know that we're still waiting to find out what some state action and projections are going to be. We may have to act before we have a clear picture from the state of Oregon and the legislature as to what's going on. I've been in touch with some of our legislative delegation, and there is a lot of interest in opening up the Education Stability Fund at the state level. So that's a plus. But again, we may not know what that looks like until as late as May or June. So I feel like I'm here to make the least bad decisions at this point, once we get as much information as we can in front of us. And I want to make sure that we have as many detailed and practical options on the table before we make decisions. And you heard some of that from Director Wyatt already. And I think that I can safely say that we will have some additional information than compared to what we had 2 or 3 weeks ago. And importantly, I'm interested in using this challenging process as an opportunity to really rethink the relationship between the district and the board and the community with regard to being transparent and open and providing the fullest and most open accounting of where we are. And again, like I said 2 nights ago, whether that's, when you open that financial kimono, so to speak, sometimes it's a little embarrassing. But like I said, I don't think anyone's here asking for us to print money. So I think I have a lot of trust in the people that are here and the other people that we've heard from, that we can implement that level of transparency and continue to have constructive and I think better discussions than we've had in the past. So again, thank you for your participation. I will try to be one of the last people out of here if you are interested in staying around and chatting more after all of the formality is done. So thanks very much.
As many of you know, I'm from Wilsonville. My son went to Lowry and is a 7th grader at Wood now. I'm a prideful cat. I'm proud of my town and of my schools, and I want to let my community know that I see you. I see our large primary schools and our big classes. I also see a brand new primary school that will benefit the entire district in its capacity, quality, and location. I know that you have felt left out of this budgeting and school process, yet have experienced its seismic effects. I know you feel that the communication has been lacking and unclear, and I hope as we move forward in this process, we will improve. I knew the first listening session on Monday would be difficult, listening to heartbreaking and gut-wrenching testimony about saving beloved schools, breaking children apart from their treasured friend groups, and the potential of canceling a future-making Mandarin dual language program. My remarks at the first listening session were not precise, but they were real and they came from my heart. And so I will start with those tonight. So we're all starting from the same place. When we move forward with the $10 million budget gap discussion, I will be prioritizing teachers. I'm concerned about what will happen to the quality of education of our students, the morale of current teachers, and the lives of the teachers who would have to be let go. I have heard specific concerns from my community in Wilsonville about high teacher turnover and the yearning for stability. Indeed, there is also a distinct lack of funding stability from the state of Oregon. Just last month, Director Shoemaker and I attended the Oregon School Board Association's annual meeting, where 4 state legislators all emphasized the lack of federal dollars that is causing the state to pit healthcare versus education. I do not trust that there will be more state funding moving forward in this short session. This lack of funding and the $10 million budget gap is what brings us all here tonight. For you all to talk about your children and your priorities to us. I want to let all of you know that the district has an FAQ on the website. Please take a look at that. I would now like to turn it over to Chair Kelly Sloop. I'm looking up at the sky. I don't know why.
I'm here. So, good evening. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I am back east with my husband. We will be celebrating our son as he defends his thesis tomorrow for his PhD. But I wanted to be a part of the listening session tonight. First, I'd like to acknowledge our community members and parents who have reached out via email, phone, meeting at coffee shops to share the concerns, frustrations, and many questions. I want you to know that we hear you, and many of those questions we have directed to the district office to answer. And as my fellow board members have mentioned, they'll be available on the FAQs on our website. I also want to acknowledge your frustration and erosion of trust. I understand. And I know the timing of the bond passing and the work session feels more like a blindside. The recommendation is very heavy on our students, our school families, our staff, our community, leadership, and us as board members. And this is very difficult to hear for all of us. I myself have many thoughts and questions that have been all-consuming the past 2 weeks. How did we get to this point again? Declining enrollment was a part of our board goal number 4, and it is the driving force behind our budget challenges. 300 students were not enrolled this year that we had in the past, and that equates to over $3 million of a budget shortfall in funding. Also, when we were talking about our board goals in July, admin was involved in the ballot measure process for the capital bond for the November election. Unfortunately, the timing of the bond, waiting for results from flow analytics, and our November work session created a perfect storm. That evening on November 17th, the board was unpacking the superintendent's recommendation in real time during the November work session. But today, as I've mentioned and other board members have mentioned, we are faced with declining enrollment and budget shortfalls, and these are very challenging. Last winter, we were hopeful for adequate funding for SPED from the legislative advocacy that we were involved in, along with parents and community members, to fill in the 3% gap that our district is drawing from our general fund for special education. I do believe investing also in the early childhood development creates long-term sustainability. But ODE is warning of more cuts from funding, which will directly impact our budget. As I mentioned on Monday night, it's important to understand that Oregon has an equalization formula for student funding, so each student receives an equal base amount, and that total amount of funding depends on our average daily enrollment. In addition, a key point of the equalization formula is that property taxes are inversely proportional to revenue received from the state. I ask myself over and over again, what is the best decision which will preserve quality education for all students while addressing the financial crisis in our district as well as other districts in the state? Where is the balance? What does that look like? What is the number of students which makes our finances sustainable? We must analyze all programs, school budget inefficiencies, the expenses, and dig deeper into the significant increased costs within our budget. We need to consider the impact of closing a school on class sizes, boundaries, transportation, support services. Just real accounting numbers and savings. However, we cannot continue to reduce staff as a means to help balance our budget. Even though our staff is 80% staff salaries is 85% of our budget, with about $150,000 for each teacher, which includes salary and benefits. When class sizes increased last year, it impacted our inclusion model, student outcomes, and staff resources. This is not sustainable. I want to say that I appreciate everyone's questions and their concerns that they shared at the listening session on Monday. We hear you, and as I've mentioned, we have directed the staff to add on to the facts and comparisons. Your words mean something, and for me personally, I am struggling with the recommendation versus cutting more staff, either one or the other. I ask myself, what options do we have that meet us in the middle? I will continue to look at the data, the facts and answer page, ask more questions until we have the December 18th special meeting for a decision. There is more time to look, listen, and act. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Sloop. We are now going to start the public comment section of our meeting. I'm actually going to be calling 5 people's names. And as you can see, there's 2 mics. So 2 people can go to one mic and 3 people can go to the other mic. Please listen for your name. Andrew Clark, Jolene Armstrong, John Armstrong, Kara Clark. And those are and Alexandra Smith. I'm a counter too. Good one, Megan. All righty. So Andrew Clark. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you. So Andrew Clark, I have 3 children in the district, one at Sunset and 2 at Three Rivers. So I guess district adjacent. So firstly, I would like to thank you guys for your service. I understand they're elected positions, but they are also volunteer. And you guys have a very hard job and a decision to make in terms of the future of the district. But one thing I really want to speak on is my disappointment in how these conversations get started from the district. At times, it feels like a grenade thrown over a wall where the shrapnel is left to hit the board and the community as well, right? So we've heard a lot of back and forth, whether it's Wilsonville versus West Linn, and it's ugly, and it's not the way things should be happening. And so, as a part of that, in my daily job, I would never put a recommendation in front of my bosses that didn't have thorough analysis behind it, that didn't have risk mitigation, didn't answer a lot of the questions that are obvious to come up. And I don't really understand why we continue to do that as a district as well. It feels like we should, we need to be able to provide some of the answers. It's like, okay, if we do this, then what? What is going to happen? Okay, we combine schools, we increase student workload. Well, we know we need more teachers, but what about support staff? What about everything else that goes into operating the school? Because if those don't change as well, we're going to have more issues. Our Sunset is already feels at max. Teachers have too much, our support staff has too much, and we're just increasing that workload. So how are we going to support that? I think as we look at consolidation and what that does, there are opportunities to get this district right and back on its feet. And I think there's operational efficiencies that we can gain by having less buildings. I think there's ways to maximize our dollars that are going into the buildings to support kids. That really should be central to this decision and how we approach this. Not necessarily school size, classroom size, para to student ratio. Like, how many people do we have providing that daily support to our students? Because that's really where the work happens. When we look at our school buildings, the magic happens within the 4 walls of the classroom. That's where they're spending the majority of their time. It's not in the hallways. At least we don't want them in the hallways. But it's within those 4 walls. So how are we getting as much resources into those areas to influence the future for our kids? So there's a lot of different ways in which we can look at this. And I think it's important that we take a step back and make sure that hopefully this is the last cut, right? So how do we make sure that the ship is righted so that way we're not revisiting this next year? Because the one thing I know is if we're holding our breath, waiting for the state to come through with funding, waiting for another bond to pass, like it has to stop at some point, and it's not sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Jolene Armstrong.
你好，我的名字是 Charlene. I want to list some reasons why you should not close Bolton and the Mandarin program. After 4 years of Mandarin, it would feel like going to kindergarten again. Second reason, I want to continue learning Mandarin. It's not fair to me and my class and my Chinese teachers to shut down the Mandarin program. We were the founding class. Third reason, it would also separate me from my friends in my community. 谢谢，再见.
Thank you. John Armstrong.
So I think we talked a lot last time about generally numbers and enrollment and things. And closing the Mandarin program would have a really harmful effect on these kids. And I think the reason why, as a parent, what I've seen, right? As a parent of a dual immersion kid, when my wife and I made that decision, we were scared about it, right? Like neither of us speak a second language, weren't familiar with Mandarin. And we decided to take that risk and that commitment along with the district. And I think one thing that when I asked Jolene if she wanted to speak and I asked her what those reasons were, it took me back when she says that it would feel like starting kindergarten again, because there's a moment as an immersion parent, and it probably happened for me about 3 months in, where you realize all of those worries that you have, they don't, because to them, that's school. It's not Mandarin immersion, it's school. And so you're not just pausing that Mandarin immersion program, you are taking away everything that these kids in these 4 classes have ever understood as school. It is what they have expected school to be. And so it's deeply harmful for them to risk starting over is what it feels like for them. And so I think that for me, having that realization that she was going to be good, that these kids, they understand it as everyday school, and that's all they know. And that's all they've known since they started their early education. And it really flips their experience in early education on its head. And it disrupts in what may be an irreparable manner. Thank you. Sai Chen.
Kara Clark.
First, I want to say it's really hard to come up here and speak. I think that the temperature on the community pages and on Facebook has been really challenging for other voices who might not agree with some of the sentiments, and I take it very seriously. And I love a lot of these community members, but I'm conflicted. And we are absolutely overextended as a district. We also have a socioeconomic advantage that a lot of districts in our state don't have, a bond and a levy that has been historically backed by the community. Yet we are still in a place that we need to face layoffs in our school buildings. Out of respect for the parents and families from those buildings, I have been silent. I hope those who know me will understand my deep compassion for the children affected by uncertainty, and I don't take my words lightly. I am a Sunset parent and I love my school, but it's a building, but the building is really about the teachers and the staff. At Sunset, we are approximately 360 students currently, and we are struggling. Every school in this district is struggling. We have larger class sizes and not enough support staff. Services are not meeting the needs of our students, and I cannot accept continuing to leave children behind. If consolidating buildings means we can fund positions in each building and rebuild support systems, then this is the direction we need to go. Although there have been amazing ideas, visionary ideas from the public on funding solutions, I know from experience that systematic change is slow. Do we want to put our communities through this year after year instead of proactively centralizing resources across less schools? And I completely do support all the trying to keep the programs, our preschools, and I do believe our programs are part of the core. And I'm hoping that maybe if we can keep those, our community would also be willing to move together. Your kids would still be together. We don't want to break our communities. It's so important. But we also, can you imagine if we go back to a vision where we actually have the support staff in every school? We can get librarians back. If we get more funding, that funding should be that we can have nurses back in our school to help our kids. We are an inclusive district. If we get the Medicaid funding fixed and we get more Medicaid billing, we can get our nurses, we can get more paraeducators in our buildings. Our kids need help. And every time I'm in a classroom helping because we don't have enough teachers to give that extra support, we are leaving them behind. And we can do better. We need paraeducators. We need bodies on the floor. And let's put it into the buildings and get more people. Thank you.
Alexandra Smith.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Smith. I have 4 kids at Boones Ferry Primary. At the last listening session, it was mentioned that the alternative to closing schools is cutting a significant amount of teachers. It is disappointing that the district has not been transparent about this. The community cannot fully grasp what this new budget deficit means without clear communication about how many teachers would be cut and what class sizes would look like if no schools are closed. After having to cut so many teachers last year and seeing the challenges that have ensued due to larger class sizes, it does not seem prudent to increase class sizes again and with another wave of teacher layoffs. We need a plan that keeps as much student-facing staff as possible to ensure reasonable class sizes and adequate support for the district's current inclusion model. As class sizes increase, classroom management becomes more challenging. There are increased behaviors and more learning environment disruptions. Increased class size is the main driver of teacher burnout. If we want to continue to be a district that prides itself in academic excellence, we need to keep skilled, experienced teachers, not give them untenable working conditions and drive them away. We cannot keep asking teachers to do more with less. It is unfair to the teachers, it is unfair to the students, and sets no one up for success. I hope as these tough budget decisions have to be made, you will make reasonable class size and the success of all students in the district a priority.
I'm going to call the 5 next speakers: Athena Contreras, Kate Thomas, Josephine Tang, Melissa Lee, Annie Kendall. Athena Contreras.
Hi. West Linn and Wilsonville are highly connected. We are one district, but we don't have a lot of opportunities as parents to interact with one another. Many in Wilsonville may not be as engaged in learning the details to the same level that parents whose schools face closure right now, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to have the same information presented to them before the decision is made, because the reality is that it will affect them too. School closures in West Linn can and will affect Wilsonville more than in just class sizes. Enrollment is declining quickly, but I'll get back to that. The reality is that the closing schools could cost our district money right from the start. How can that be when the district has shared the savings of school closures? Well, it's simple. There are generally additional costs at the receiving schools when they absorb a large amount of students. This can offset the expected savings, sometimes enough to actually cost school districts money if not paired with significant teacher layoffs. This will not help to keep class sizes low, and the disruption could certainly cause more enrollment declines at an even faster rate. In addition, test scores in academics usually decline in both the receiving schools and with the transferred students, leading to further impact to our district's reputation. Less people could move to West Linn or Wilsonville if these effects are realized. If the closures do not lead to additional significant enrollment losses, we might be facing higher taxes later, as new land could need to be purchased, new facilities rebuilt or renovated, and this would come at a time when we already have some of the highest debt burden in our state and even in the country. With the passage of the recent bond, debt per student will increase past $40,000 per student, and probably significantly so. In other words, maxing out West Linn schools to close the maximum, so close to the maximum capacity, so 500 students per school, might become a problem if new growth leads to new schools needing to be built, or the excess capacity could spill over into Wilsonville, leading to even higher bus costs. Our eligible reimbursable bus costs went up almost to $10 million this year, up $3 million over last year, with only 70% reimbursable. Costs will be going up more than 7% in the next year, according to the recent contract with First Student. So we don't want to add to that. A lot of kids at Bolton walk. Increased enrollment growth is on the horizon. 2 major housing developments and 1 zoning change will increase student numbers in West Linn. Oppenlander Field Housing, Vision 43, which is a zoning change, and the waterfront high-density homes. Even if charter schools continue to grow and enrollment does decline in the short term, there is still growth in West Linn on the horizon. And these developments were not included in any of the calculations that we could see. Wilsonville's overcrowding relief depends on Westland staying stable. There are districts that could make our district stronger. There's something that we can work on, finding solutions that work, and there really are some very valuable ideas being floated around right now. Wilsonville parents and teachers can be a part of the conversation too, because honestly, we are stronger if we work together and if we share ideas. In the meantime, it is entirely workable to keep enrollment to around 350 per school if we to use the soft boundaries option. We can cut costs by redirecting the Oppenlander money that is being used for fields temporarily to retaining teachers for this year and work on rebuilding our district's reputation after 2 years of upheaval from discussions of closures and cuts. We can become a destination again if we keep schools open and show that we are a stable school district and that we can get through this with some extra effort and working together. Right now we have 2 options, but I think it's a false dichotomy: close schools or cut teachers. And it is not, because it will not save the money. The more I've looked and the more I've spoken to other people, the more I believe that we have other options that can get us through this. And then I think even more people will want to be in our district than ever before. We may win back some of those we have lost to
Athena,
virtual
I
schools.
think we were at 3 minutes at this point. Thank you.
I'm going to pass out these so you guys can look to
Yes,
see.
thank you.
We do have a side table. Kate Thomas.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Kate Thomas, and I'm the current PTSA co-president at Stafford Primary. Over the past year and a half, I'm nervous. I do not like speaking in public. I've had the privilege of meeting many of you, speaking with you, and working alongside of you. My background is actually in healthcare, 20 years as a critical care nurse with the last 3 in leadership. I may not understand every detail of state politics, but I deeply understand leadership, accountability, and what it means to carry the weight of hard decisions that impact real people. Before anything else, I want to thank you for your service. I know that time and emotional weight comes with these roles, and I respect you. Tonight, I'm here to talk about community, what it truly means, and why our words and decisions matter. For me, community has never been tied to sidewalks and housing density. Community is not defined by who can walk to a school. Community is defined by connection, by who shows up, who stands up, and who lifts one another through the hardest times. By that definition, Stafford is one of the strongest communities I've ever been a part of. Thanks, guys. Sorry. Our families show up at every event, often in numbers that even surprise us. When a teacher has a health crisis, when a family loses something or someone, when a student struggles, the response is immediate, generous, and overwhelming. Volunteer spots vanish within minutes. Sometimes we have wait lists just to help out. I've never once questioned the commitment of this community, not once. Last year, when we were told that the district was in financial trouble and that Stafford might close, our community did not panic. We mobilized. We joined preschool task forces. We joined small school task forces. We joined and created district foundations and Linn-Wilsonville Education for All. We attended meetings, hosted listening sessions. We wrote emails late into the night. We did everything the district asked us to do and more. We stepped up because we were told our efforts mattered. So imagine how it feels to hear people say Stafford isn't a real community because our families don't live in the same neighborhood. That breaking apart our school, scattering our kids into multiple schools and even multiple cities isn't a big deal. To us, it's a big deal. It's a profound loss, and it's painful to hear that our reality is just dismissed. Less than a month ago, board members stood in our PTSA meeting and urged us to support the capital bond because it would be good for our school and our community. We directly asked about closures. The answer was clear. No, we're not doing that. Families in other Westland and Wilsonville schools were told the same thing. So either communication inside the district leadership is deeply broken, or the public was not told the truth. Neither explanation inspires us. And right now, trust is fragile. Whatever decision you make, I ask you to remember this. Leadership is not the absence of mistakes. Leadership is what you do after them. Leadership requires transparency, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Leadership requires the humility to say, we got this wrong, or we should have communicated better. Leadership requires understanding that numbers on paper represent children, families, relationships, and a school that has poured itself into supporting you. If you want to rebuild trust, truly rebuild it, it starts with honesty, accountability, and transparency. We deserve the same level of honesty and respect in turn. Thank you.
Josephine Tang.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 27 years ago, Woodstock started their dual Chinese language program. 4 years ago, Bolton Chinese dual language program was created. 2 years ago, Lake Oswego began the same program. 1 year ago, Jacob Wismer started their Chinese dual language program. Do you see a trend? Something must be right when other school districts are starting their own Chinese dual language programs. We are trailblazers. According to a TED Talk by Keith Chang, behavioral economist at Yale, learning Chinese can affect your propensities to save money. Because Chinese does not have past, present, and future tenses. We talk in present tense about future time references. When you speak about time, you are forced to think about time. Being bilingual will enlarge your worldview and improve your personal finances and create positive personality and neurological changes. As the world is increasingly become multipolar, it is high time to be bilingual. Instead of doing a survey working under the assumption Bolton will be closed, how about asking parents if they want to send their children to a different school? Can you do a survey to ask if all parents in this district would like to see their children to study Chinese language as a dual language? Can you do a feasibility study of the benefit of adding Chinese language as an option to attract and increase enrollment in our district? How about a survey to ask parents if they can accept classroom size of 30 to 35 kids in blended grades? Currently at Bolton, we have 2 blended 4th and 5th grade classes with 32 and 33 kids each. I am thankful to all our teachers and staff for their patience, tenacity, and love for our children, who, while they cope in this chaotic environment. Loaded classroom sizes will be the unfortunate standard for all schools in the district if we close Bolton and Stafford. We need a thorough feasibility study on the impact of transferring these schoolless neighborhood kids and overloading to other schools. This is a problem for all parents of school-age kids in Wesleyan. This is not about a building. This is about maintaining a standard of excellence for all kids who attend district schools wherever they call home. Whether they are a resident of Wilsonville Summit Apartment or Cascade Summit Apartment in Wesleyan, a homeowner of Rosemont Road or Dollar Street, Wilsonville Road or Boatman, the burden of a large-sized classes and the erosion of education quality will spare no child, regardless of where in the district they call home. We elected you to represent us. We elected you to represent our best interests and the best interests of our children. The district has continually demonstrated its priority lies with capital spending on huge, expensive showcase school like the 78 million AT Creek, where the first listening section took place. The district consistently failed to take into account of the opportunity cost of a comparable special option levy. Instead, fund teachers and learning specialists while opting for smaller capital bond to maintain and incrementally expand the school they have. Just 2 sentences. We elected you under the requirement you be transparent about matters of critical importance to the school district.
Josephine.
We elected you to require a reasonable amount of time.
Josephine. Melissa Lee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Lee. My daughter Jingxin in Bolton Kindergarten Mandarin program. I want to share why we chose Bolton Mandarin program, even though Mandarin is myself and my husband's first language, and English is our second. We drive Jingxin every day back and forth from Happy Valley to Bolton. The key reason is cultural identity. If my daughter uses the same language at school and that she uses at home, and the friends around her also understand her cultural background, she is happier and more confident. Also, she will be an active bilingual, not passively bilingual like many American-born Chinese. There are many families like us who are looking for high-quality bilingual programs. Bolton has strong academics and a wonderful campus, yet it has almost no visibility within the Chinese parent community. Even experienced teachers at Hope Chinese Charter School who are deeply connected with Chinese resources all across Portland had never heard of Bolton's program. I am very shocked. So another program, Mandarin program, at Jacob Winsmer Elementary in Beaverton School District actively promotes and make it easier for families to join. I think it's good to bring it because we can see the comparison. At Jacob Winsmer, they host early open houses in January, followed immediately by enrollment. They offer warm dinner information sessions where current families share success stories. Beaverton School District has a dedicated multilingual department, and the bilingual coordinator in the school is reachable through multiple channels, including WeChat, a popular Chinese app. They also highly recommend out-of-district families, and their cafeteria serves Chinese food. In addition, teachers from other Chinese programs help spread the word throughout their own networks, and they share the words to the local real estate agents. They attend local Chinese cultural events, such as Asian festivals. They distribute bilingual brochures with clear links to apply. Families create WeChat groups where interested families can join, and they maintain active communication on social media. Jacob Winsmer target enrollment is thoughtfully balanced. 1/3 Chinese-speaking families, 1/3 mixed language families, and 1/3 local American families with no Chinese background at all. Hope Chinese Charter School also has 44% Asian enrollment. At Bolton, however, almost no Chinese families participate, not because the program lacks value, but because it hadn't been actively promoted. The district strategy has been unclear and the enrollment process is confusing. Leadership seems like has never truly invested the time, attention, or intention required to build the program. I know that many American families who don't speak Chinese at home worry that their children will struggle. But here at West Linn, many local families love Mandarin. The children are not forced to learn this difficult language. They enjoy it. This is simply beautiful, and I hope they shouldn't be turned away. Thank you.
Annie Kendall.
Hi. So thank you again for being here and listening to us. I am also an out-of-district parent. Our son got transferred into Bolton, and we were so excited. And we're actually currently house hunting to move for Bolton and this program. And I think it's very concerning, and it's certainly given us some pause to see how all of this is unfolding. You know, the lack of information we receive, the lack of information you guys receive is not how this should work. And it makes me worry that if I move here, this isn't going to get better, that, you know, whatever school we get moved to, we're going to have these kind of same problems there. You know, it's good that you've now apparently received the report and the breakdowns days before you're supposed to vote on it, but it shouldn't be like that. Y'all shouldn't be put in that position. I haven't seen any of the data, so I'll hold my judgment until then. But I know you did ask for budget alternatives. So I've got a list, and I've sent this to all of you. It's an easy searchable format of the general fund budget. So when we look at it, there are just items that have increased, 12.8 million. Now, some of these, we can't do anything about it. But ones not including payroll, associated payroll costs is, I believe, around 7 million. And so I'm just going to go through some of the big ones. I'm not picking on anyone here, but SSF reimbursable student transportation has increased 3.8 million or 60% in 1 year. We do get reimbursed for 70%, but we would still be paying an extra 1.1 million. I don't know why, but it is in that budget. High school extracurricular salaries have increased $745,000 or 50% again in 1 year with no change in full-time employees. The total budget for high school extracurricular salaries is now over 2.3 million. Athletics and activities transportation, just the transportation, has increased $439,000 or 60% since last year. Textbooks for improvement of instruction services have increased $350,000. Summer school programs, additional pay, not main salaries, additional pay has increased $200,000. And there are several more. So just this list is about $3 million, and it's not associated with any teachers' pays. This isn't talking about increasing full-time employees. There's no cuts to employees that would have to go into here. Granted, there are things like inflation, but it really comes down to prioritizing. Like, these things are all valuable. I mean, they are, but is giving these things more money more valuable than early childhood development programs like pre-K? Is it more valuable than academic achievement that you can gain from learning a second language? Is it more valuable than entire schools and teachers? I don't think so, but that is unfortunately the decision you'll have to make. But thank you again. I do not envy you. Have a good one.
All right, our next five are Nathan Corliss, Alex Warren, Dee Dee Miller, Rob Fernandez, and Rainey Snodgrass. And we'll start with Nathan, please.
Hey, I'm Nate Corliss. I have 2 kids, 3 and 6, and moved here for the school districts and for Bolton. Thank you, Dr. Ludwig, for all the work you do for us and your administrative staff. Thank you to the entire board. I know this takes a lot of time. You're here late with us, hearing us rant, so really appreciate it. I'm here because I want to see Bolton, Stafford, and the Chinese dual language program remain open. In fact, I want to see those programs expanded. I want to see Spanish dual language expanded to attract more students. I was inspired by the parents who spoke on Monday, and I have been extremely impressed by the parents who've spoken tonight. I was also struck by the somberness of the board's remarks on Monday. This is a moment for optimism, not for defeatism, and here's why. As one of the highest achieving school districts in the state, we attract families from around the region, state, and country. We cannot let birth rates from COVID years or today's interest rates affect policy for the next 50 years. They're important facts. Our dual language programs turn away students who want to enroll. Instead, they should be used to boost enrollment and bring in new families, expand it even. On housing, in Bolton in particular, many older residents are delaying downsizing because of the slow real estate market. When the market conditions change, which they always do, their homes will be open to new families. Bolton and Stafford sit in neighborhoods with infill potential. Bolton has large lots, minimum HOAs. I can leave my junk car in my driveway. Apartment complexes, multifamily units, condos, and starter homes. Lot subdivisions and new construction happen constantly in Bolton. It just doesn't get the same press as mega developments. You can find homes in Bolton for under $500K. There's one listed right now, which is almost unheard of in this region. Young families choose Bolton. Families are already here. I know families with newborns. I know families who've moved here specifically for Chinese dual language. I know dozens of children under 5 who will enter Bolton in the coming years, including my daughter, Ophelia. Zoning changes through Vision 43, the Willamette Falls redevelopment. I will bring in new residents, and that growth works best with neighborhood schools at the center. We need to roll out the welcome mat to new families for this district. Remote work allows people to live anywhere. They will choose to live in West Linn-Wilsonville because of our incredible schools, thanks to all of you. We have an opportunity tonight. The decision made in this room will stay in this community for decades. It's time to get creative. There are options before closures. Let's do another bond. Grants, partnerships, working with the state, leaders to protect our schools and programs. We need to attract new students. Choose optimism over austerity. Choose the version of our district that future families will thank you for. This is a moment to shine. Keep our schools and programs open and leave a legacy you all will be proud of. Thank you so much.
Alex Warren.
Good evening. I'm Alex Warren, and I taught in our district for 10 years, first at Stafford and then at Beckman when my family moved to Wilsonville. I have 2 kids that go to Boones Ferry, and I am a proud member of our PSS there. Teaching at Stafford, followed by Beckman, really opened my eyes to how different the needs are of our 2 towns. Last year, when the Small Schools Committee was put together, Wilsonville voices were not invited to the table. I was dismayed, but I understood why, as our schools were not the ones that were considered being cut. However, as I followed along, I read every report and finding and thing that was presented from the district in detail. To me, it was a very clear black and white choice that wasn't personal, but based on more business decision. And I was frankly shocked when the board didn't at least close Bolton and Stafford. I was horrified at misinformation claims that I saw on social media during the small schools process, including claims that some of the schools on the chopping block were the most successful and highest achieving elementary schools. Because the fact of the matter is, as a lifelong educator, you cannot look at data points in isolation without also looking at factors like housing instability, median income, food insecurity, and the amount of the population that perhaps is being born into positions of privilege. Comparing schools like Bolton and Boones Ferry is not comparing apples to apples. We are a district that often talks about equity, but the fact of the matter is that Boones Ferry stands at around 425 kids, and Bolton stands at around 210. Yet each of those schools gets 1 principal and 1 counselor to serve their entire population. When we cater to the elite and the few as a district, we do so at the expense of the many. Not closing these schools and programs disproportionately harms our most vulnerable students, and often that is on our Wilsonville side. I am proud to be one of the only PSSs in our district who fully funds all of our field trips. We fully fund all of our family nights, and we provide transportation to events that happen outside of school grounds. Because as a staff, a school, and a parent group, we know that Boones Ferry succeeds when we wrap around our most vulnerable students. If we don't close these schools and programs, Wilsonville is going to take the biggest hit because we are the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Miller.
That's the noise inside your children's brains as their synapses collide, trying to understand, why did mommy and daddy lie to me? Why did mommy say I was staying at Stafford and now I need a new school? Why did daddy say I would graduate from Bolton? He lied. Because that is what our school board sold us when they voted to keep our primaries open. Note, nothing was implied. So what happens in our children's brain when they're lied to by the most important people in their lives? It's simple. You lie, I don't trust you. So I'm a psychotherapist, and I've dedicated my life to understanding the brain, children, and trauma. So while you carelessly drag the children of Bolton and Stafford through this again, this disturbance raises mental health issues, passing a $190 million bond, then 2 weeks later making recommendations to close 2 of the listed schools. Even our kids get it. And while you allow the request of the superintendent to push her timeline, so brief, most families didn't enjoy Thanksgiving. This creates foundational trauma which puts our children into a state where their brain development changes structurally and functionally. Then add in the behavioral and cognitive impacts of changing their school environment, when our board did not implement even 10% of the ideas brought forth a year ago. So I can quote hundreds of studies about the unnecessary stress this is putting on our children, but this is science, which means we're not exact on what harm this will actually do to each child's brain as we lie to them or ask them to unnecessarily switch schools, because it's not black and white. So I'm going to switch to what is fraud. In Oregon, we can overturn a bond if it is fraudulent. Fraud. School officials knowingly lied about essential facts. Fraud. The lies directly influenced the election. In Oregon, the court will step in if there is clear evidence, and it appears there is. As committed as we are to our schools, a number of parents, including attorneys, are committed to legal recourse. If you decide to take the $10 million, you don't also fraudulently get the $190 million capital bond. Our superintendent asked us to move along the vote for you to do that so that she could have a nice, quick, stress-free holiday. And I would just like to point out that the rest of us and most people in this room will not enjoy a stress-free holiday, but I can also guarantee you, most likely, you probably will not have that next year either. Thank you.
Rob Fernandez.
Good evening. So I have 3 kids that went through the district. I served 2 terms on the board and 6 years before that on the budget committee. So I just wanted to share with you my thoughts on what you're kind of coping with right now. First is the immersion program. Unfortunately, one of the first situations I had to deal with when I was newly elected to the board was we had to drop the Spanish immersion program. And it was really, it was not fun, and it impacted a lot of families. And so in that vein, my recommendation, my thoughts are, if there is some way that the Mandarin immersion program can be moved somewhere, there's some kind of middle ground, I would ask you to take that under advisement. I know that probably very few people know the personal and professional connection that Dr. Ludwig has with China. And I'm sure this is an incredibly difficult situation for her. But this is a district program, right? It's not a Bolton program. And so if the program moves somewhere else in the district, as distressing as that might be for parents who cannot get their children to that, it actually opens up opportunities for other patrons of the district who probably would just be overjoyed to have that opportunity. Just something to think of. All of the calls for creativity and finding funding and whatnot, I spent 14 years, and I'm sure you know it really, looking at trying to correlate budget numbers with actual dollars that can be spent and what is masked as in the budget as a certain code. Really, it all comes down to our staffing, right? At least when I was on the board, it was 88% of our budget, and we can't commingle bond. We can't commingle, title funds and whatnot. We have to do what you have to live with. So, and again, I'd urge you to remember that when you took the oath to serve on the board, as no matter what decision you make, it's going to be ugly. And it's no fun getting yelled at in the grocery store or on the sideline at a soccer match by parents, especially in front of your kids. But really, it's kind of taking in the needs of the entire 8,000 students, 8,000 plus students in the district. And I urge you to consider that during these very difficult times. And for anger and angst amongst the patrons of the district, I really am angry at the state's unwillingness to step up to these problems and then divide our community. So anyway, good luck, y'all.
Amy Snodgrass.
Thank you for your time. I'm a parent with 3 kids at Stafford Primary. Last month, voters in this district narrowly approved a 190 million school construction capital bond measure. According to publicly available materials on the district webpage, the capital bond measure promised investment in, I quote, all 16 of the West Linn-Wilsonville schools. The same materials promised voters investments in Stafford Primary, specifically its HVAC system, interior lighting, fire systems, play equipments, restroom, parking lot, infrastructure improvements. Only 2 weeks after voters approved the bond measure, the district reversed course seemingly and is now threatening to close Stafford Primary. I personally cannot in good faith accept that glaring disconnect. Promises were made to invest in all schools, and there was certainly no disclosure regarding potentially closing schools. It, to me, is not plausible that the district needs and objectives meaningfully changed during that 2-week period following the bond measure vote. I'm extremely concerned that if Bolton and Stafford are closed, the district's misrepresentations related to the bond measure have exposed it to legal challenges to overturn the bond. The bond only very narrowly passed, and it was expressly premised on promises to invest in all schools. A successful legal challenge would take bond money away from the district, including the $6 million Oregon grant match. And even if unsuccessful, legal battles would no doubt prove to be divisive, protracted, and very expensive. For example, it has been reported that the district's legal expenses related to the Oppenheimer property exceeded $800,000. Nobody wants that. It should also be emphasized that Stafford is not a liability. It is an exceptionally high-performing school that is an asset to this district. School Digger, U.S. News, Niche, and Great Schools all recognize Stafford as one of the best elementary schools in Oregon, and frankly, the same is true for Bolton. Families indeed specifically move to this district for the opportunity to attend one of its high-performing schools. Shuttering the top-performing destination schools would be short-sighted and a loss not only to its students, but to the entire district. The district's reputation and ultimately its enrollment are dependent upon maintaining our high-performing schools. Moreover, the district has already invested heavily in surrounding schools in close proximity to Stafford, including Athey Creek and Riverside. Compared to other district primary schools, and I'm not picking on anyone, it makes sense to invest in Stafford to capture future operational efficiencies. As compared to other primary schools in the district, Stafford is uniquely situated on a very large piece of land. The land surrounding the existing school could be used for future expansion of Stafford or future other district needs without disrupting students who are already enrolled and thriving at a vibrant community school. Just sitting here listening to other parent comments, perhaps consider moving some of the preschool programs or the Mandarin language programs to Stafford. There's a lot of capacity in that building and certainly a lot of room for growth. New projects, new facilities, and new endeavors are of course important and part of things you need to consider, but I think that we need to remember that our core competency at a district is, as a district, is educating students and maintaining our high-performing learning environments. And most importantly, I know you've heard this over and over, but please don't forget that Stafford is a school and a community that truly matters to a lot of families and about 300 young kids. Thank you for your time.
The next 5 speakers are Emily Wasilk, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Mara Salas Chance, Gwen Mui, Megan Boyd, and Casey Finn.
Good news. I'm probably not going to take your entire 3 minutes. I was here probably about a year ago. My son is special ed at Stafford. We chose Stafford because it is a small school, because it is accessible for him, because it is, what would you call that? Proximity that's easy for him to route around. He's autistic. So I'm not sure what considerations you're taking in light of kids with special needs, but I feel like the small schools are the directive we would go. We are watching this closely. We're kind of on a teetering board right now. He should be phasing out of Stafford going into middle school. We are welcome to put him into a private school if we hear that classes are going to be small again. We live on a block that probably 60% of our block are private school or homeschooled. I think you have lost a lot of parent confidence, especially not you individually, but the leadership of Oregon was especially with passing the Senate Bill 744. People just lost confidence. They expect better for their kids. They want better for their kids, and we're not showing them that. And until we can turn that around, you're not going to see the enrollment go up. I can guarantee you that. And that's all I have to say. And I was only here for solidarity and support for my other speds mom.
Mara Salas Chance.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Mara Salas Chance. I'm a mom with 2 kids at Stafford. One of the most important pillars of a strong school system is a genuine community engagement, not just listening, but truly implementing what we hear. Unfortunately, this district has not fully used the power of meaningful community engagement, and the lack of engagement and transparency is exactly why we find ourselves in this situation today. Once more, as Brené Brown says, clear is kind, and our community deserves clarity, honesty, and partnership. We cannot continue to default to closing schools or cut essential programs or fire teachers as the only solutions available. We have to think bigger, we have to think creatively, and we must ask, what is this district plan to actually increase revenue? Because solutions do exist if we're willing to build them together. First, we should attract new families with a robust pre-K program. Right now, our neighboring district, Lake Oswego, offers a full-day pre-K for $900 a month, 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. West Linn charges $677 for a 3-hour program, not even at all primary schools. For working parents, that is not enough. Families want to stay in the district, but the district has to give them a reason to stay. And when the district surveyed families last year about the preschool options, how much in-person community engagement was done? A single email with a link is not authentic engagement. Families want to be part of the process, not an afterthought. Second, facility rentals are a real opportunity, and if staffing is a concern, then bill staff costs directly into the rental fees. What does it actually cost for an employee to open and close gyms, auditoriums, or fields for community groups, sport leagues, and events? Let's calculate it and make it workable. Unused facilities generate zero revenue. Third, consider a temporary salary freeze for district administration. Many organizations use short-term freezes to stabilize budgets. Even a modest policy increase can help reduce a deficit while protecting frontline programs like our teachers. And finally, we should be allowing outside enrichment programs into our schools. Parents in this district already pay large amounts for private enrichments, academics, arts, STEM, athletics. Why not offer those programs inside our schools and keep the revenue here? These ideas aren't radicals, they're practical, achievable, and community-driven. The solutions to our financial challenges won't come from closing doors. They will come from opening them, listening deeply, and tapping into the creativity and strength of these families who care as much for this district. Thank you.
Gwen.
Okay, my name is Gwen Moy and I have 2 kids at Stafford. Thank you for letting me speak tonight as a parent of our community. So Stafford is a top performing school statewide and within our district. Closing these 2 high quality schools for a $1.5 million saving on a $266 million budget is not a fiscal heroism. It's short-sighted and weakens what makes our district great. Research shows that kids displaced by closure lose ground in math and reading for years to come, face more absence and discipline time, especially when shuffled to bigger, crowded, and underperforming school. And that to me is Frog Pond, a new school with unknown performance, where Stafford's 350 kids would fill its starter capacity, leaving no room for new neighborhoods growth. For my family, it's also personal. Right now, we are 10 minutes from Stafford, and my 2 kids already have an early start to catch the bus in the morning. Frog Pond or other school will be 4 times further, with longer, earlier rides, and we know that will tire our little ones and sap their focus. And it doesn't end there. Closing neighborhood anchors like Stafford tank home values 5 to 7%, and that will erode our tax base. With 1,200 fewer students that you guys projected over 10 years, each 200 costing about $2.2 million in state funds, we could lose more revenue than we saved as our community trust severed by this decision. I also want to touch base on the preschool program. It's not a budget buster. I used to pay $12,000 yearly for a full-time care with 16 to 18 kids per class. Our district tuition is $6K for 3 hours daily, $8K for 4 hours with smaller class size. What didn't work was not the low enrollment, but the design of the program. Increase class size, optimize staffing, add 6-hour blocks or extended hour options for working parents. Use empty classroom. It could bring in revenue. I do get the challenges, rising costs, dropping enrollment, but teacher layoff and school closure shouldn't be the first option. Let's try alternative. Open enrollment, share administration costs with neighboring districts, cooperative procurement, business partnerships, energy retrofits, facility rentals. I can go on, but that's just a starter. Portland, for example, slash $30 million from trimming central office costs without closing school. Families like mine are ready to help find smart fixes that save money and keep excellence alive. Please reconsider. Demand full transparency on every option before you guys make this irreversible action. Our kids need stable school at the heart of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Megan Boyd.
Good evening. My name is Megan, and I'm a proud parent of Stafford children. I have a current 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and an incoming kindergartner. I want to share just for a moment about what Stafford has meant to my family and why decisions made at this primary level can shape the long-term health of this entire district. My daughter started kindergarten in the COVID era. She started at home. She was isolated, online, and missing everything that we as parents hoped that she would have in her first year at school. But when she finally walked into Stafford in the spring, it all changed. She was immediately known, not just by her teacher, even with a face mask, but also the principal. Our school is not huge, so our principals know our kids' names immediately, and that was special. She felt safe, she felt welcomed, and that was exactly the grounding that she needed at that particular moment in time. And like every family, many families likely in this district, we lived through COVID. We learned at that point that when it comes to schools, when schools and families in the district work together, we can overcome really challenging situations. But that partnership is built on 2 things, communication and trust. I'll get back to that in a moment. My son, who is now in 3rd grade, it has a little more quieter and reserved disposition about him. He doesn't put himself out there naturally, but in a smaller school like Stafford, he is not lost. He's known, he's cared for, and he's thriving because of it. Stafford's size is not a weakness. It is an absolute asset and a strength. It's hard for myself and many families in this district to understand how in January of 2025, we were told that consolidation would not be on the table for at least 2 years. And yet here we are, less than 1 year later, and just weeks after that bond was narrowly passed by voters in this district. And that bond was supposed to support all schools, including Stafford and Bolton. And now we're facing closure. This is one of the reasons why this proposal is so devastating to myself. It does not feel like this was done in good faith. And when trust is shaken at the entry point of public education, families are not going to wait around for the next shoe to drop or the next disruption. They're going to leave. And that trust has absolutely been eroded. They're going to explore different options. Primary level instability leads directly to long-term attrition for our future middle school and high school students. Those are where our primary students should go very soon. We should not and cannot solve short-term budget issues by creating long-term enrollment challenges in the future. Before any vote, I'm asking you to ensure that we understand what really has changed since January of 2025. How does the current recommendation that we are considering contrast with the promises that were made in the narrowly passed bond just recently? And why are 2 of the top performing primary schools on the chopping block? Stafford's where my children have become who they are, and I'm very proud of that. They tell me and recite the tiger traits all the time. Please consider the long-term consequences for trust, for future enrollment, and for the well-being of our youngest of learners. Thank you.
Casey Finn.
Hello, thank you for letting us speak tonight. I'm Casey Finn. I have 2 children at Stafford. What was most upsetting for me in learning about this decision is that all of the proposals seem to be focused on our primary care and primary education, It seems very short-sighted to cut off these schools and programs. They are the start of the funnel that leads and draws families into West Linn and Wilsonville district. If you take away these schools and these programs, then you will only be assuring that you will be continuing this enrollment battle for much longer, as I think it will be harder to get families to switch schools once students are established. Not only that, but primary level education is the foundation for all kids. This sets them up for the rest of their life. Just let that sink in for a minute. These first years of their lives are the most critical. It shapes their literacy, emotional development, and where children start to discover who they are, their sense of belonging, themselves, and friendships. And they're pivotal, and it's a window you cannot get back. We moved to West Linn in 2019, just before COVID, and we knew no one. And we didn't get to meet people until my kids started first grade because kindergarten was online. And Stafford gave us a family. They showed us a community. They gave us somewhere to belong. My kids made friends, their best friends, favorite teachers. They've struggled there, but they've learned a lot. And I know my oldest daughter is in 5th grade, about to exit out of Stafford at the end of this year. So I know in theory, this decision you might think doesn't affect her, but she would be devastated if Stafford were to be closed. She holds on to very traumatic events we've seen in the past. And I can just tell you that it would haunt her not to be able to go back to Stafford and enjoy a stampede or, go see a familiar teacher face in the hallway, be a parent or in the future that could come back and help out and be a part of that community. So I think the last thing I would just say is I've talked to a lot of other parents and people in the district, and your alumni are your biggest allies and advocates. A lot of them were kids here, went to school here, as you did. They've come back. They've brought their kids to go through it because they know how good it is. And some of them are even our teachers now. And so I just really plead you to think through this decision, explore all the options. I don't think that you've been given all of the options. But I know there's room in the budget for us to think about these essential programs. So thank you.
Everyone, we're going to take a 5-minute break right now, and we'll come back in 5 minutes and we'll keep going with the public comments. Get back into your seats. Thank you so much. Everyone. All righty. We're going to call the next 5 speakers. They are Megan. Wow. Megan Tedmus, Christopher McCrum, Madeline Schaefer, Brianna Wilson Green, and Alyssa Colon. Megan Tedmus.
Hi. My great aunt was Enza Wood, as in the local middle school's namesake, and my great grandfather was deputy sheriff of Stafford. Saving this district is personal for me, but I want to take a minute to think about the primary kids and what they have lived through. When COVID hit, they lost their preschools. It was ripped away from them, their first home away from home. And now, for the second year in a row, these same kids are hearing that their schools might be taken away from them just as they started to regain trust again. And I want to ask, what does this do to their mental health in their early childhood years? I think a problem for our enrollment is leadership messaging. We've stood on test scores and academics, but what we're missing is that parents who live in this community move here for more than just, or move here for schools, public or private. Great schools are more than test scores. They're places where children can grow roots, parents can build community, but you can't do that with district instability. So what does this district do to stand out? Why aren't we meeting parents and helping them build or helping them with the biggest decision of their child's life? Why aren't we hosting info nights at local preschools to engage incoming kindergartners? Why aren't we actively trying to rebuild trust? Why do our websites feel cold and outdated? It's marketing 101. But if we're really looking at long-term fiscal responsibility and enrollment, why isn't Riverside on the table? If we reduce to 8 primary schools and 4 middle schools, why are we keeping 3 high schools? And why preserve a high school that costs $7 to $10 million a year and serves under 200 students? Closing 2 primary schools saves $1 million or maybe 10 teachers. And if we're making decisions based on 10-year projections, what stops the district from closing a middle school or a high school in 5 years on this same generation of current primary students? What does that signal to them when all the schools they have went to are unsteady? I want to segue to preschool. Our district doesn't seem to understand their target market anymore. Our current program doesn't include a clear identity, marketing, or outreach. We have broken enrollment links, and we're missing the beat by starting at age 4 instead of age 3, a huge design flaw. Parents are not willing to uproot a 4-year-old from an established preschool to join ours. The largest preschool in Clackamas County sits 1 mile from Stafford. Its building was sold out from under them, and they have no place to go next year. They have reached out to collaborate, partner, or rent space. Why haven't we considered what a huge opportunity this could be to solve our enrollment problem? Because let's face it, if that preschool goes out of district, their families will follow because of its community. And if families are willing to drive out of state for preschool, they'll continue to do so for private schools. We're losing money in enrollment by ignoring preschool, the start of our pipeline. And at the end of the day, parents are not willing to invest in a district that keeps saying your school, your teacher, or your job might be next. They want stability, trust, community, and roots. Thank you.
Christopher McCrum.
Hello. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our feedback as community members. I'm a parent of a kindergarten dual language Chinese student, but I'm also a Wilsonville resident. We moved to the district knowing that there were dual language programs, and we were committed to having that opportunity available to our child. That being said, getting that information before we moved out here was quite difficult. We had to do a lot of research, and I think a big problem why this program might be a little less popular than the others is just the availability of information. And I think the other thing is, I think a lot of us as parents who might not speak the second language might not be super comfortable with enrolling our kids in something that we might not be able to help with. But I can tell you our experience is kind of the opposite. Our kindergartner at this point is teaching a lot of stuff that we don't know. She's getting to be immersed into a new culture. We had mooncakes in the fall, and we got to learn about the Chinese holiday in the fall. So, I think this is a very important, well-rounded part of her education. Taking that program away, I think, is going to cause a substantial setback to the kids that are in the program, particularly those that have been in for a few years. It was emphasized the importance of committing to the program for any of the dual languages. And I think the families and kids have made that commitment, and we expect the district to honor that commitment as well. That being said, we certainly understand the fiscal pressures that you're under, and I think, you know, it's important to remember not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, you know, if school consolidation ends up being the answer, which I really hope it's not, because we love the Bolton community, we love the small school, we love the small class sizes. There's wonderful teachers. That being said, if that's the decision that's made, I don't think the program should go along with it. I think the program could thrive at any location, and as was brought up by someone else earlier, it might make it more available to other families who might not be able to drive their kids like we have the opportunity to. But you know, I think there's a great deal of data out there that these programs generate high academic performance. I think there's other individuals that would consider programs like this when they're considering moving to our communities. And I think closing this program is going to cause an irreversible change in the opportunity. I think the startup cost and the startup energy to bring a program like this back, should the environment change in the future, might be too high. So I think it's important to really strive to keep this program for our kids, and increase the availability and knowledge of the program. And I think that's going to help draw more families to the district, as opposed to just cutting academic programs in order to try to meet the budget. Thanks.
Madeline Schaefer.
Good evening. My name is Madeline Schaefer, and I'm the parent of a kindergarten student in the Mandarin program. I spoke with you on Monday night. I came with data and research, the logical argument for why this program should remain whole and stay at Bolton. I'm back again because I need all 5 of you to understand something. My son started school 3 months ago. He's 5 years old. I'm already exhausted by this fight. And I want to say that again because it matters. My son has only been enrolled since the end of August, and I am already exhausted by what this district has put families through. If I feel like this after only 3 months, imagine what the families here feel like for the last several years. This is not what a school district should be doing to this community. This process is tearing us apart. It is pitting schools against each other. It is forcing parents to defend their children's education like it's Hunger Games. And it is the exact opposite of what this district claims to value. So tonight, I have one simple question for you. What is your plan? Because it cannot be this: constant churn, fear, instability, emotional whiplash for families who are just trying to give their children a stable, loving, educational home. It feels like we are being dragged through a new round of maybe your school will close, maybe we'll move your program, maybe your kid's favorite teacher will be fired, maybe the school community you invested in will be dismantled. It's not sustainable, it's not healthy, and it's not fair. I wake up every morning with a pit in my stomach, a physical ache in my chest, a headache that I don't get to blame on a caffeine deficit, because I'm thinking about what decision you will make and how it will ripple through my child's future. I should be waking up excited to send him to school that he loves, the place where he is thriving, where his teachers adore him, where he is finally being seen and understood for the unique, sensitive, bright little human he is. Instead, I wake up terrified that the rug will be pulled out from under him, that everything he is building, his confidence, his friendships, his sense of safety, will be disrupted because of a moving enrollment target model, an unclear budget narrative. I am not alone. Every parent in this room feels the same uncertainty, the same fear, the same exhaustion. This isn't about Mandarin. This is about stability, predictability, trust. This is about families needing a school district that does not change direction every 10 months. If closing 2 schools is truly the best decision for students, if you can look us in the eyes and tell us that it is the right call for learning, for community, for stability for the next decade, then make the decision. Stand by it. Own it. take responsibility for it. But this limbo, this fear, this is the worst of all the worlds. This is tearing us apart. This is what is pitting Westland and Wilsonville against each other. This is hurting our children more than any budget shortfall ever could. So tonight I'm asking you for clarity, for leadership, for a real plan. So please, stop this cycle, end the uncertainty, give us a plan that we can count on. Our kids deserve better, our teachers deserve better, our community deserves better, and don't you dare cut Mandarin. Thank you.
Brianna Wilson Green.
Good evening. I am the proud mother of 2 children at Stafford. My oldest started at Stafford as schools were going back to in-person after COVID. My youngest started preschool 2 years ago and is medically complex and non-speaking. For both, I cried after dropping them off on their first days, feeling the weight of putting them in the hands of others for their care. I soon found, however, a village of staff and students who openly express care and affection for them both. All the staff in the building know both of my children's names. There are still days when I drop off my youngest who needs specialized support, like getting food through a G-tube, with trepidation, knowing how unique his needs are. Every day, though, we are greeted with a smile and expressions of excitement from the staff who see him. Every day we pick him up and hear the love in their voices as they tell us about his successes. And we are amazed to see kids of all grades approach and greet him by name. I can't tell you what a relief that is. We have found a community, a village, that we have now invested years in. That is why Stafford is special to us. That is also why many schools are special to many families around this district. We are all taking that leap of faith by waving goodbye to our kids every morning, releasing them into the hands of their teachers and paraeducators and librarians and bus drivers and so many more who are working together to help our children take flight year after year. Do I want my children to have that community at the expense of others? No. We understand budget limits. We as parents are reasonable. That is why this approach feels like a punch in the gut. We care about our communities. We care about others' communities. We're all in this together. Yet I hear language from district leaders that pits our communities against each other. I hear us being blamed for advocating for our kids. Give us transparency. Give us reliable, finished enrollment projections that account for the dozens of families who have left because of school closure talks. Give us a performance audit comparing our district's resource use to best practices. Give us more than 1 week after our community barely passes a huge bond, after district staff came to our PTSA meeting advocating for the bond and told us there were no discussions of school closures going on. Give us more than 1 week before telling our principals that our schools are being considered for closure. Give us trust that when the board votes to keep schools open for at least 2 years, we won't have these conversations again less than a year later. Give us preliminary boundary maps, school sizes, class sizes, specialist caseloads. Show us how the least restrictive environment for kids with IEPs would look. It's ridiculous that we're at any of these listening sessions before we have any of that information. You're only hearing from threatened schools. We're all busy parents, and you're missing voices from families who don't know how this would impact them. After years of drop-offs, volunteering, and building these communities, we're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the respect of honest information and genuine collaboration.
Alyssa Colon.
Good evening. My name is Alyssa Colon, and I'm a kindergarten parent at Stafford. I wanted to talk about 2 things this evening. The first being the amazing community at Stafford. My husband and I were in the group that didn't trust public school. We were very skeptical, and we had our son enrolled in a private school going into this school year. But we still wanted to see Stafford after hearing so many of our neighbors rave about it. And it was true. Just going back to the back to school night, 4 days before school started, we switched our son. We loved Mrs. Everhart, Principal Decker, and all the front office staff. They were so welcoming and transparent with us from the first second. We could feel the love right away. Our son is so happy at Stafford. He loves going to school. He loves his teachers and his friends. Kids and families are beyond happy at this school, and it's amazing. And taking away Stafford Primary is taking away the heart of this community and district. Second is creative problem solving. We've heard it a lot tonight, but I'm baffled that you were here last year with a promise of 2 years, and I haven't seen any action taken for long-term solutions. I know there are parent groups that have proposed different ideas and solutions, and I haven't seen anything as a trial run or exploration the past 10 months. All you've done is to propose another cut to the schools, and that's not problem solving. You're taking a very short-sighted Band-Aid approach. You're actually proposing a theoretical 1.5 million savings, and you're going to make the situation worse by driving more families away, which I think a lot of people have echoed here. It took us a lot to even look at public school, and now you're going to just turn people away again and again. Also, the pandemic. The dust is just settling from the pandemic in terms of returning to school. This is not a time to cut schools. It's the time to invest and show that you're here. This is the time for marketing campaigns and bringing people back. Just like us, a lot of people are going different ways. Last year, I called in October, I called in February, I called in March, and there was nothing in terms of open houses. And I didn't hear about an open house until the week before in May, which we weren't able to make. And it's just not okay. We're not being competitive with private schools or all these co-ops that are going on. We need to show the community that we want to compete for their families. We need to get them back. The school landscape has changed, and we as a district have nothing to stay up with the times and stay competitive. We're being complacent and just saying it's a birth rate problem, which simply isn't true. It's a business problem, and we're not pivoting. We're being stuck in old ways, and it's going to get us here every year trying to close another school. We just heard how Riverside High School has a business and marketing path. Make it a project for them. Do something, hire somebody, update the website. We need different solutions for this problem. We need people who are willing to fight and leverage all of the amazing ideas from this community and actually put something into action. Put a real plan in place and give us 2 to 3 years to see if we can get families to return. Families want to be in this amazing district, but they also want stability and faith that the district has their back. Thank you.
I'm going to read the names of the 5 next speakers. Emily Charlton, Richard Lynn, Cindy Lynn, John McCabe, Kieran O'Connor. So the first is Emily.
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm a parent whose daughter would attend Stafford in the future, and I've heard so many wonderful things from parents about this school and their kids' experiences. One of the reasons we chose the neighborhood we moved into is because it's so close to the schools in Stafford. After discussing with neighbors and other parents, I have a few questions about what the potential closures of Stafford and Bolton would mean for our students. Where is the evidence that shows closing schools would improve the community and outcomes for our children? I've seen the Hanover Research meta-analysis impacts of schools and class size on student outcomes that you mentioned earlier, and studies show that 300 to 400 students is a sweet spot for fewer disciplinary issues, student satisfaction. The larger the school size, test scores start to decline. These school closures would put many schools that would absorb these students over that sweet spot and create a lot of hurdles. Why are so many cuts proposed for early and primary education? As many have asked tonight or stated, it's the start of the funnel. What about possible solutions within our middle schools and high schools where we could cut costs and be more efficient? How will this bring more students back into public schools? The initial discussions from closing the schools already created a decrease in headcount for the district. I have more than one neighbor who opted to enroll their children in either private school or school districts where the other parent lived because they were under the impression that Stafford was closing. And my last question is, how much does it really save the district to close these 2 schools? Where is the money going that will come from the $190 million bond that we just passed? All 16 schools were included in this bond, so how can these closure proposals be made so soon after the community voted to pass this for improvements to the schools, including Stafford and Bolton? The community deserves transparency. Thank you for listening.
Richard Lynn.
Hi, my name is Richard Lynn. I'm Asian, as you can see. So when you put a mic in front of me, I feel like breaking out into karaoke or K-pop, but I'll refrain tonight. I have some other important things to share into the mic. So, yeah, when I heard about Bolton and the Chinese immersion program, that's what brought my wife and I here into the community. There's the old joke when I was young, which was a while ago, that you know, what do you call someone who speaks 3 languages? Trilinguals, right? What do you call someone who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. And then what do you call someone who speaks 1 language? An American, which, yeah, hit close to home as someone who's American born. But it's true, because back then when I was growing up in the 80s, only about 9% of Americans spoke a second language. Now we've improved to 22%, which is remarkable over the past 45 years, 50 years. But we're still way behind Europe, way behind Asia, where the numbers are more like 45, 50, 55% who are multilingual. And studies have shown, longitudinal studies, one after another, have shown all the benefits of multilingualism. You're stronger in reading, in writing, in math, in all sorts of cognitive abilities. And your English is actually better than those who only focus on English. Somehow, starting around the 2nd, 3rd grade, you start to outrace those who are only focused on English, and you never look back. So that's the benefit that these countries in Europe and Asia are reaping that we are not as much, unfortunately, here. And so we need to work on that, of course. But ultimately, what's really important to me personally is because when I was growing up in the 80s, in grade school and junior high and high school, I was not known as Richard nor even as Lynn. I was known as Flat Face. I was known as Chinaman. I was known as Chink. Those were my names. That's what I was called every day. And so that feels like, to me, or at least to my children, ancient history, the 80s, the distant past. But sometimes it doesn't feel so distant, especially with COVID, when suddenly Asian hate crimes spiked 80%, when our great leader calls COVID Kung Flu. So while it seems like it's a distant past to many, to me personally, having a Chinese immersion program here, not only do we reap all those benefits for our children, but we also spread cultural empathy, cultural understanding, cultural sensitivity, which is so important in this day and age, where we should see each other as people, not China as just a country that's somehow a competitor to us and an enemy, but the people of China, the people of Taiwan, the people across Asia, across Europe, South America, all around the world as people. And that's what these language immersion programs are so important to our community and to our children and their future. So thank you.
I'd like to remind everybody that we'd like to refrain from clapping, please, so we can move on with the speakers. Next up is Cindy Lynn.
Yes, we're the 1-2 punch. So let's just take a step back here. We're not really talking about budgeting. We're talking about education. And for all of you, all of us sitting here instead of staying at home eating dinner with our family, because we care about the future, not just for this district, but for mankind. And none of us like what we're seeing in this world because we need people to be better educated. And so I propose that we spend our time on a different subject. I feel we're wasting time talking about closing down programs and closing down schools that people rave about. Richard told you why we chose this district, because of the school. Well, I mean, Richard told you about why we chose to live in West Linn, because of the school district. But he didn't tell you why 20 years ago our family chose to live in West Linn, also because of the school district. So if you fast forward 20 years from now, I hope there will still be people choosing to live in West Linn-Wilsonville because of our school districts. And I was astonished and shocked when I looked into some status or some stats. And then I realized that our school district, which we treasured and we adore, the spending on instruction in the last 6 years, since 2019, had fallen 30% of that to our total district spending. I'm sorry. And you are nodding. You know that. And so we're talking about the wrong subjects here, ladies and gentlemen, especially when we're talking about a intervention, high impact, performance-driven programs such as Mandarin program. Like Richard said, we're not talking about learning a different language. Many parents had talked. It's about building neural pathways that the students would never have the chance to build. It's not just a language program. It's the high impact, high intervention program that years ago, the board spent so much time and energy raving about. And the board back then championed the program for a reason. And the reason is that these programs produce high-performing kids, not just intellectually, but as a global citizen. So again, ladies and gentlemen, please, let's focus our time and energy on a different subject. Let's find other areas to cut so that 20 years from now, people will still choose West Linn, Wilsonville for the school districts.
John McCabe.
Thank you. Slightly before we get started, if Director Sloop is still on the line, her son and my son were both on the same soccer team in 8th grade, and they both got their doctorates this month. So what it's really showing is sports really doesn't matter. They were only in a rec team. They need more time to study to do well. And we need more of that because 2 doctorates from the same school, same month, same soccer team, it's really helpful. Anyway, one of the things that has not really come out much tonight properly, but West Linn has 60% of the students. Wilsonville, 40%. Yet the superintendent said, no, they're even. So we're going to have 4 primaries in Wilsonville, 4 primaries in West Linn. Well, if you take the numbers and extend them, what really should be in Wilsonville is 3.2 schools. The rest should be in West Linn. And one of the ways you can achieve the 3.2 is it was said that until Frog Pond is built out, Frog Pond School Primary would not open. And the only way it can be effective is to steal kids from Stafford that have been in West Linn their whole life. And this isn't the first time this has happened, and I'm not talking about January, I'm talking about when this school was built. They tried to force students from Willamette and Stafford to come here for middle school. And there was such an uproar, much more than what you're seeing tonight. We do not need this to destroy the district. Leave West Linn as West Linn. And if you look at the extension going out, the 10-year, the way it's been set up by sending all these students to Wilsonville that really belong in West Linn will be a smaller high school than Wilsonville. And it's going to be so small, there's no need to have Riverside anymore. You can place Riverside in all the empty rooms that will be at either high school. And the other part that's hard for Riverside is STEM doesn't exist there. Because they don't teach calculus, and they won't teach calculus because there's a minimum number of teachers that are available to teach calculus because you have to reach different standards. And so when they go around bringing 8th graders in and says, we're as good as both high, they're not. And 23 students found that out this year. The 9th and 10th and 11th graders from last year, 23 did not return this year. It's a sign that if people are told the truth that you want to be in STEM, not this school. And then the other issue is there is no talk from the district to allow any of these schools that they want to close down to become charter schools. It just beat the whole system. And the only way this can be done really is we pay approximately $5,800 per student that goes to Three Rivers. We get $11,000 from the state, but we only give them $5,800. And we don't give them any of the SIA grant. And that's the other thing is, take the SIA grant Take it out from where it is now, put it in the primaries to improve reading. And all of a sudden, we don't have a $10 million problem. We don't need to close down schools. We just have wrong priorities.
I'd like to remind everyone again about clapping. Next is Kieran O'Connor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thanks for letting me speak. Thank you for being here. Also, heartfelt thanks to everybody else who has spoken tonight. I think I'm just amazed to see how much all of us care, regardless of what you're trying to champion. It's heartfelt, and I think on Monday I spoke, and I appreciated your attention then. I have two students who I'm incredibly proud of. And if I talk more about them, I'll get emotional again. So I'll try to stick to more facts and how I think about this, but still speak from the heart. I talked about on Monday broken promises. I met Superintendent Ludwig when my oldest daughter, who's a trailblazer in the 3rd grade at Mandarin in Bolton, and she committed to go through that entire program, and we committed to the district. And now the district is breaking that promise, and I have to talk to her about that. So I think there's a couple themes that I want to highlight tonight. One, if we step back from this entire conversation, what I'm hearing is a lot of parents who care, because the number one thing in our life is our kids, and the number one thing that we want to instill in them as children is their education. And I think we're all here, we agree on that. But I fear that this process, the very nature of this process, the question, I love the opening, it's like throwing a grenade over the wall. This is dividing everybody. This is damaging. This process, year in and year out, 11 months after the promises of last school board. I don't envy you. I don't envy you, but I don't envy you for multiple reasons. One is for this budget. That is a challenge that all of us recognize. But I also don't envy you because right now on your hands is you're dividing cities against each other. We're talking about different schools pitting against each other. Now we're talking about elementary versus middle and high school. And all of us are just speaking from the heart because it's our children and we want to protect them. I teach organizational behavior courses in managerial problem solving. And it's known with data from Chip Heath and others I can share with you, that when you make A/B testing, or when you choose either or decisions, like you can have this or you can have that, organizations, managers, and boards are bound to make a suboptimal choice. So by pitting this, I've heard it multiple times, we either have to close schools or we're going to have to lay off teachers. That's the message that you're sending to the community, and the community hears it, and now we're fighting with each other. So you have instilled this problem by framing it. The second thing that's problem is trust. We're here 2 years in a row worried about the thing that we care most about, that we wake up with pits in our stomach. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking, gosh, this is real. I can't believe it. So I implore you, please think about this. Behind the scenes, there are parents talking about, this is so unstable, we're looking for anywhere to find stability. That might be homeschool, private school, other districts. Let's think creatively instead of either or thinking. Think about this, think outside the box. Don't neglect the power of multiple options, getting into the details. I'll just finish real quick. I shared this Monday night's conversation with a friend, and he said, oh, I'm a project manager. Anytime somebody cuts whole categories, I know that they haven't looked at the details closely enough. And when you frame it as either or, my mind thinks, what's behind that garage door with all of the stuff that's being protected, like high schools with lower enrollment than some of these schools, or middle schools that cost more, or the building we were in Monday night that cost $78 million. There's going to be 1.5 million savings here. So please slow down. Don't neglect the power of multiple options. Please collaborate with a number of us in this room. Look at creative solutions, think outside the box, and we'll roll up the sleeves together to collaborate with you to try to drive this problem solving, not by A versus B, but where can we cut costs? In a $160 million budget, we're facing a deficit of about 6%. What if we spread 6% across? Egg prices have gone up. This is the last thing I'll say. Egg prices have gone up tremendously in the last year. You don't say, when we go grocery shopping, we're just not going to buy groceries because it's too expensive. You say, we have to make costs. If egg prices are too expensive, you don't say, oh, we're not going to get those. Say, maybe we'll take half a dozen. Think, how do we create equitably and equally across programs so that we can cut, so that it's not shutting down entire systems and worlds and trying to squish them all together. It's going to cut costs and it's going to divide everybody else here again. Thank you for your time. Thank you again for letting me speak passionately.
I'm going to list the next 5 people: Ross Hart, Christy Lands, Jennifer Zhao, Rebecca Reyes, Amanda Brookshire. Ross Hart.
Hello, my name's Ross. I'm the dad of a kindergartner at Stafford, and I have 2 younger kids. Beginning of the night, I was kind of struck by a lot of discussion of kind of treating the decline in enrollment as something that there's nothing that can be done about it. I kind of strongly disagree with that. There are a lot of things that other people have said tonight that are great points, but one thing as a Stafford parent that really has been hitting me is just, if Stafford were to close, we'd be leaving such a giant swath of the geographical area of the district with no schools at all. So I moved to the district, to my house in 2021. At that point, we had a elementary school and a middle school within a 5-minute drive. It was great. It was a big draw to move to the neighborhood. I work in North Portland, so it's quite a drive, but it was a real big draw for my family and I to move here. And I think that's pretty clear that that's the case for a lot of people. So there's plenty of older people with no kids moving in my neighborhood as well. That could easily be the case for large areas of the district if the schools are deemed inadequate or inconvenient or damaging to the growth of kids. So another 10 minutes drive, 20-minute bus ride for elementary school kids, but each way every day is a big amount. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about how the impact of that amount of sitting on the bus does for a 5 or 6-year-old. I have 2 more kids that are going to be going through school, and I don't really want them spending all day on the bus their whole life growing up. So it's just kind of these 2 potential 2 schools, not just potential Stafford, but middle school moving a few miles down the road, making that commute inconvenient too. We also don't have a conventional high school close by. That whole north central area of the district if Stafford closed, would have no schools that I would deem local schools, and that's a big impact on our district's ability to draw people in. Again, that's the way that I see the district could pull itself out of the financial difficulty. We're all talking about the money per student. We can't cut our way out of this problem. It's a compounding problem. If we're losing students, then the problem gets worse. 5-10 years down the line, we're still losing students. It's not going to resolve itself. Thank you.
Christy Lands.
Even if schools had closed last year, we still would have cut 19 teachers from primary. Only primary school positions were affected by keeping schools open. It was the difference of 11 teachers costing $1.45 million. Today, we know that we actually had an additional $4.8 million more in reserves, which equals approximately 36 teachers. This was never a choice of schools versus teachers. It's all of us versus inaccurate numbers. Worse, while classrooms absorbed these cuts, spending is going up elsewhere. Not one district administrative employee thought that this situation was dire enough to take a pay freeze this year. It's giving, let them eat cake. In fact, some received an increase in pay of 6%, which is well beyond the cost of living increase. High school extracurriculars increased by $730,000 with no change in personnel. Athletic transportation, $430,000. Travel stipends, $330,000. We gave away $1.5 million in bonuses to athletic coaches and different district office administrators while beloved teachers were cut and class sizes went up. It sure seems that they were willing to punish every kid in this district in order to manipulate us into closing schools. You all agreed that we needed a clear, thoughtful, and transparent process last year, yet this is far worse. You can try to assure us that these cuts will be seamless transition, but frankly, you are not in charge of facilitating that transition. The people who have seen to it that this process would be as miserable and chaotic as possible will be in charge of that transition, and they aren't going to tell you how it's going to look until you vote. And if it goes poorly and hundreds of families flee the district, you will have to make even larger cuts the following year. This will have ripple effects that cause pain across our district in both cities for a generation of students. I no longer trust this district to provide a stable education for my child, even if schools stay open. We'll just be back here next year with another manufactured crisis. Unless you hire new leadership, if we had a second pair of eyes to look at this, if they could clearly communicate that closing schools was the right thing to do, I would listen. I would accept it. I do not want to keep schools open at all costs, but so far, no one has shown us that this would help students at all. Not because we think our school is better than the other schools, because closing schools harms kids for life. You've seen the studies. So can you show us that harm is absolutely necessary and won't be spent on more bonuses? Can you give us the equity studies, the boundary maps, the cost analysis that we asked for last year? Show us that you are not flying blind and writing a blank check. I am asking you to table this conversation. We need you to hire new leadership.
Jennifer Zhao, please don't make remarks. Please don't heckle. Oh my goodness. Sorry, everyone. It's getting late. Jennifer Zhao.
The Pew Research Center finds savings from closing schools are relatively small unless combined with large-scale layoffs. Long-term savings are uncertain and often depend on selling unused buildings. That was number one. Number two, EdSource, California's largest journalism organization focused on education, finds cost-efficient schools do not produce significant savings when closed. For example, Bolton Elementary at 270 students has a per pupil cost equal to the district average. At 300 students, it would be the lowest in the whole district. Number three, Bates College and UC Santa Barbara finds closures of schools typically do not reduce personnel costs. Receiving schools may require renovation, transportation costs rise, and selling buildings become difficult. Some closures save nothing. Number four, the Broad Foundation, a national philanthropical organization focusing on improving public education systems, finds that estimates of gross savings about $500,000 per school, excluding transportation and maintenance costs. Number five, University of Texas finds that districts often sell schools below market value, and over 40% of the properties go to charter schools, potentially reducing district enrollment and affecting budgets. Number six, Great Lakes Center for Education Research and Practice finds that consolidation of schools does not reliably lower per pupil spending. Operational costs often increase due to transportation, management, supervision, and other diseconomies of scale. Number seven, Seattle Public Schools estimate ongoing savings of $600,000 to $630,000 to $678,000 per school, assuming that closures do not trigger enrollment declines, far less than 1.5. Number eight, Texas Christian University finds that any modest savings from closing of schools are often offset by transportation, facility upgrades, and maintenance of vacant buildings. Large closures can accelerate enrollment declines as families move to charter, private, or homeschooling. Number nine, National Education Policy Center finds that there is very little national level evidence that closures effectively address budget deficits. Number 10, the University of Nebraska finds that analysis finds that no consistent evidence that consolidation of lowers per pupil spending in either rural or non-rural districts. Local examples. Former PPS board member wrote that closing a school has not ever saved more than $120,000 per year. In many cases,
Jennifer,
nothing
your
at
time-
all.
Jennifer, your time is up.
Just last point.
Okay.
Lake Oswego closed 3 elementary schools in 2012 and 2013, expecting a savings of $2.3 million. However, they had to reopen another school. Today, they're facing another $10 to $12 million budget shortfall.
Rebecca Reyes.
Hi, good evening again. I did speak on Monday regarding the budget and changes to the budget, noticeably some changes of increases in discretionary spending. But so I won't take up too much of your time today. But I would like to start by restating what your board mission is. And it is, how do we create learning communities for the greatest thinkers and most thoughtful people for the world? So that is your board mission on your website. So closing a preschool program, the dual language program, and 2 primary schools doesn't seem to really align with the board mission. I know these are important decisions for you guys to make. And I know that it's not an easy decision, but I just want to kind of restate that these are our children that we're talking about. Not just mine, but many families in the community. So I want to stand by my opposition to close the preschool program. This is an essential program for our children's educational foundation and our community. There are some really great ideas and solutions that were mentioned on Monday, and a lot of really great solutions mentioned today. So I think that there's so much opportunity for the district to grow rather than shrink. And so my only request is that you extend your decision by at least 3 months so that we as parents and community members can come together, review the documentation that y'all have stated is now on the board website, so that we can come together as community members, review the analysis, review the financial documents, see where we can make cuts, see where we can align goals that everyone here has provided. There's so many great solutions to solve these problems. And so again, my request is that the board extend this decision by at least 3 months. Thank you.
Amanda Brookshire.
I was not planning on talking, so be a little bit of points. I get we all know that every school is sacred to its people, and of course, it's terrible, upsetting about the budding problems facing our district, but this isn't about that. I want to point out that those people not here tonight are the Westland residents who voted for the bond, including those that moved to Westland so their kids could go to the schools you're talking about closing, because they have no idea this is happening. Bolton is a community center. I know that's outside the budget concerns, but I just feel remiss if I didn't mention it, because the community has grown around Bolton, and as your over-optimistic building has happened, talking about Riverside and Athey, I just feel like all this money being spent, then you can't just go back and go, well, Bolton is too small. And especially as Sunset is full and Bolton is empty, obviously there's more a boundary problem. And of course, a boundary change won't fix the budget shortfall, but this is still more than that. If we're at the point where Wilsonville is seeing Westland schools being closed as fixing their problems, that's a problem from the district that has been happening, and that they need to be, the district needs to be accountable for that, because we're all going to pay the price. And that is not equity. I heard the comment the other day from a Bolton resident. Well, there's not so many, there's so few teachers at Bolton's, but this seems like it's by design from the boundaries. And Bolton people have been talking about this for years, that obviously Bolton's been planned on being on the chopping block way before any of this conversation started, because of just, we can see things happening in the district. And we're like, they're talking about closing Bolton again. And we've been talking about this for years. So I'm just like, transparency, I kind of wonder. how much money do you save closing a school, and how much money do you have to pay to keep it closed? Because I feel like if that distinction is, I mean, what's it worth? Is it $500,000 paying to keep a school closed to save $1 million? I don't know. I'm not a budget person, but it's an interesting problem. And another thing we've been talking about at Bolton is the lower part of that building is almost totally disconnected. You could put a door there and rent that space. You could have preschools. You could hire it out for daycare like they do with the after school programs. So if it's really about money, we should be able to, and it's really about, it's so small and we can't change the boundaries or whatever. I feel like that's one of the solutions. And if you can't figure out how to keep the schools open, keep the dual language program promises, and make sure we offer preschools, and I feel like the job is not being done. And again, I have not heard how the district is dealing with Riverside hemorrhaging money while we're talking about closing schools. And thank you guys.
All righty, I'm going to read the next 5 speakers. Melissa Cook, Katie Potter, Haley Chin, Melissa Garish, and I apologize to Melissa if I mispronounced her last name, and Jolene Leipert.
Good evening, members of the board, staff, parents, and neighbors. My name is Melissa Cook. I'm a Stafford primary parent, and I'm here to ask you to please not close our school, not close Bolton, and not close the Mandarin program. I also want to thank you for the chance to speak today. I'm speaking not only as a parent and a neighbor, but as someone who has read the research and as somebody who works in public safety and who knows firsthand the impact that trauma and change and instability can cause for people and for children in particular. I live in the West Linn side of the Fox Hills neighborhood, right up the street from the school, a neighborhood that we moved to in anticipation of having children. We moved here specifically for the school district, and this neighborhood, and in particular the side of our neighborhood that goes to Stafford Elementary. Closing an elementary school is not just a budget line item. It's not something that can be looked at just in that capacity. It's a decision that breaks the rhythms of children's lives. It erodes community cohesion, and frankly, it can harm property values. There have been multiple peer-reviewed studies and respected policy analyses, many of which have been referenced here today, that show the harm of closing neighborhood schools, that those harms are real and measurable. When students are sent to new schools after closures, the research shows short and sometimes even longer-term declines in achievement, attendance, and long-term graduation-related outcomes, especially for our younger students who benefit the most from stable, predictable, and consistent learning environments. A careful analysis of school closings has found declines in test scores and attendance for displaced students in the years following the closures. And those impacts aren't just statistical. They're lost classroom time, fractured relationships with teachers, and more children falling behind at critical stages of learning. This is what the research shows. I'm not here because of the research. I'm here because of my daughter, Avery. She's a child who went through the COVID pandemic, who has had trouble forming relationships and who has had shyness her entire life, who has had difficulty forming friendships and stability and getting used to a world that is completely different than the world she was born into. We are a family at Stafford. My family is here in this room. We have people who have literally become the extended families that we don't have local here. It's in our teachers, who we love. It's in the staff and in all of the folks who greet us every day, who know us by name, who know not only about Avery, but her little sister's serious medical condition and ask how she is and make sure that she's doing okay. And it's in ensuring that she is not only comfortable and confident when she goes to school, but that she can trust that those relationships and those bonds that she met are not just going to be ripped away. I know my time's up. I just want to finish real quick. I printed up the school board meeting from January 27th of this year. where we were asked to not make assumptions and to frankly be nice because there was an expectation, or it seemed as though people had believed that it was a foregone conclusion that our schools were going to be closed. And we were given assurances at that time that this was not going to be put back on the table for at least 2 years. And the board laughed, and I believe there was even a joke made at the end, telling parents to lighten up and to not be so hard. This deserves hard conversations. I know this is difficult for you as well. I also realize I'm out of time. The lack of transparency is unacceptable. I implore you to please look for other solutions. This process cannot be the way, and the focus cannot be on research. It cannot just be on, well, what about our school or what about their school? It has to be on the kids. And that is something that the parents are focused on, but I have not gotten the impression that that has been the focus of a lot of the voices that have been sort of contributing to this conversation and giving us this sort of false dichotomy of options that we're looking at. Thank you for your time.
Katie Potter.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing us again tonight with open ears and hearts, and really, I hope, listening to reasonable possible solutions. And I want to also, I have an ask of please give us more time, give yourselves more time, because I know you don't want to make mistakes or make a decision that you regret 6 months from now, even a year from now. On Monday, I talked about my deep concern for the socio-emotional health of our children who, not just the Bolton students. My son is a Bolton student in the Mandarin program, and all the Mandarin students would be at a great disadvantage if they were reshuffled, but all of the students in the district, because of the COVID pandemic, who lost nearly a year of in-person education, which is at a critical time. We hear people talking about synaptic connections, like real science, real research. We all know. We all have all of knowledge in our hands when we have our cell phones out. We can do the research, and a lot of us are diving in, and we know more and more that it's important to cradle and nurture our children's early development. That said, I want to talk about preschool tonight, and how it is a pipeline to enrollment. And I do think that the more we know about our children's neuroplasticity and their amazing brains and ability to learn at such an early age, a lot of parents are seeking private preschools, not only because of the hours, which is for working parents may not be rational. I mean, I had conversations walking up on Monday where they're like, oh, I want to have my son in preschool, but the hours don't work for me. If we could have an option to have a longer day at preschool, that would be amazing. But I digress a little bit. There are options to expand that program in many ways, including, I loved one of the parents' optimism about this is an opportunity to expand upon that. I know so many parents that are putting their kids in private schools, even a packed preschool just down the street, because they offer a 50-50 immersion program in either Spanish or English for their kids because their brains are ripe for it. If we could expand Spanish or Mandarin in the preschools, we would have a waiting list for the preschools. Thank you.
Haley Chen.
你好，我的名字是恩惠， Hello, my name is Haley, and please don't close my school down because it's a part of me, and my friends will cry. And it's a part of me. Please don't take my life out of my school. It's just a part of me, and I can't live without it. Sorry.
Melissa? Oh, Haley. Okay, sorry. Melissa, when you're ready. I know.
Timing. Haley got me. Oh, that's really bad timing. Oh. Sorry, I'm a sympathetic crier. Oh, okay, I'm also really tired. I'm sure we're all tired. I'm sure you're tired. I went to so many meetings last year. So many meetings. I saw some of you there. And it was all about the small school closures. And during that time, I saw more than one parent transition to private school because they felt like this school district is unstable. You are creating your own enrollment crisis. I heard so many ideas last year for helping narrow down the $10 million budget shortfall. And newsflash, closing schools was not going to fix the budget problem. And here we are a year later, and I don't think any of the ideas I listened to were implemented. In January, you just voted to keep the schools open, and I can't believe that we're talking about it again. I am shocked. Oh, that after destabilizing the families of the 800 children from the 3 small schools from last year and watching those parents lose faith and leave the district, I can't believe we're here again, having the same conversation. It will drive more students out of the Westland Public Schools. By not finding other solutions, families are losing faith in this school district. Again, you are creating your own enrollment crisis. I went to the meeting on Monday, and I learned you turned students away from the Mandarin program, and you didn't adequately train staff to help families enroll the preschool students. And the thing I heard over and over and over again was parents expressing that they feel tricked. They can't trust you. You're pulling the rug out from under us again. For me, it was getting that email at 9 p.m., less than 2 weeks after the bond measure was passed, with the recommendation to close the schools. Again, we just went through this. The bond passed with Stafford and Bolton updates included. And it doesn't feel like a coincidence that this was announced after the bond passed. Stafford Primary School serves a really large area. It's a rural school. Closing Stafford School leads to insane transit times for some of the students to be bused to different places. It divides friends and neighbors. That school, that big area, will be split between at least 3 or 4 different schools, tearing all of those groups apart. School boundaries should be reassessed anyways. That's a whole nother thing. But just talking about closing schools is destabilizing, it's corrosive, and it shouldn't be the first course of action. It sends the message that this school lacks stability. This district lacks stability. If you decide to close these schools, you will lose more students to private school. If you vote to close the school, be ready for a fight to rescind the bond measure. It was passed with false information and false promises to update these schools. You have not been given very much time to make a decision, but that's okay, because the longer we talk about it, the more trust you lose. You have to make a decision, a quick and decisive decision to listen to parents, believe in schools, and find a way to keep our elementary schools open.
Melissa Maluski. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Melissa. Jolene is before you. I apologize. Jolene. Melissa, you're next.
Hello there. I speak, I think, from a little bit of a unique perspective. My daughters attend at Stafford, and we actually left private school to enter the Westland School District. Of course, the reputation is that Westland has fabulous schools, and we have absolutely met that expectation. I think that our personal experience does speak to what the data shows of small schools. Immediately, Melissa Hall knew my kids. My kids show up, they feel seen, they have that sense of belonging. It's the same with Miss Decker, who's seamlessly transitioned. And I think the data does show that. There are two families that left our private school at the same time as us and did enter large schools in the Sherwood district. Their experience has been completely different. Same age kids, very structured, similarly families. And our personal experiences mirror what that data does show, that when you get over that 400 number, kids are very much affected, and how the families connect to the school overall, and it does directly relate to their achievement. So if these two schools were to close, and this is, of 6, so this is not 2 of 20, this is 2 of 6, it would pop all those other schools over 400 is one of the estimates that I saw. So we're not talking just about, Haley being deeply affected by her school closing. I think it's going to really change the culture, and the shift that's going to be required for all those elementary schools is going to be huge. I think we can get really creative. My brother is a 5th grade teacher in Fort Collins. They also have struggled with the same discussion. It's been up before their school board, and they have found solutions to keep their small schools open. And it has kept their achievement very high. We know kids do better. The data is clear that there's less behavior problems, there's higher achievement, kids feel safer. It's really important for our communities overall. And I think the thing to really think about is elementary school is the base of how those students are going to spend the rest of their educational journey. We know that if a 3rd grader is not reading at 3rd grade level by 3rd grade, they are 4 times more likely to not graduate high school. K through 3, you learn to read. 3 and above, you read to learn. So our achievement is going to be really, really impacted if we don't invest in these really young kids. This is the foundation of their educational journey. It's known as the Matthew effect. So I think we need to pause, get really creative as to looking at the budget kind of as a big picture. And it is real. It is a struggle. There's a lot that has to kind of fit in and balance all of that. And I recognize that. But billing Medicaid, we don't do that. Dollars are left on the table. I think we can just get creative overall. There's one more thing I want to say. Coming from healthcare, I know directly, I'm an ICU nurse. The diabetic patient that we don't give the insulin pump to when they're 12, they come see me for a kidney transplant later. It's more expensive. When we intervene on those kids in those higher grades, it takes more resource to catch them up. So we're really good in healthcare of not investing in the upstream stuff, and it costs a lot of money. So I think really pausing and being cautious about cutting our elementary budget is super important. And I think we can get creative. I think there's ideas there that we can flesh out. We just need to pause and dive into that. So
Thank you. Melissa, you were closing us out.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I had a few thoughts that I want to share. I see 3 key issues that our district is facing. First, there is decreasing enrollment across the district. But do we just accept enrollment is declining more than forecasted, or do we try to figure out why and try to reverse it? What is the board and what is the district doing to try to bring enrollment back up? I suggest consulting with the community, working with us to bring it back up. Make our schools something people want to come to. Find other ways to cut costs and bring our teachers back, bring our librarians back, bring our language teachers back. Let our community know our schools are stable, that they are prioritized and they won't be cut. We can boost enrollment as well by marketing, holding open houses, and having strong district leadership our communities trust. If we try that, if we make a real concerted effort as a district, as a community to bring enrollment back up, and then if it doesn't work, then I am fully on board with going ahead and cutting schools. But let's try to see what we can do around enrollment before we give up and we start cutting schools. The second issue that I see is uneven school sizes. Our small schools task force last year, when asked to look at the question of small schools, concluded that primary schools in our district were small because of how boundaries were drawn. Nationwide research is very strong on the fact that primary schools between 300 and 400 students have the highest academic achievement, that students have the greatest emotional well-being. There's better relationships between students and teachers, less discipline issues. And the data is the strongest for schools that have the greatest economic disadvantage and disability. And I think that a solution that we could have then for uneven school sizes is we open Frog Pond and keep all the other schools in our district open. And we can then have every primary school in our district in this sweet spot of 300 to 400 and give every single primary student in our district the opportunity to really thrive in the environment that very strong research shows is where our students learn best. And I think that soft boundaries, where the boundaries change for new students starting kindergarten, students are entering these districts, kind of slowly, gently rebalance enrollment. And so all of our schools are kind of right-sized is one way. One kind of final thought, I know that I'm almost out of time. A third issue that I see is we have a budget issue. But why are we only targeting primary schools and teachers 3 years in a row? Why, if the crisis is so severe that every year more teachers need to be cut, is everything not on the table? Why is literally not every single thing in the budget being looked at? We have lost trust and need an independent look at our school's budget to regain trust. Hire an independent budget analyst to look at every line item in our school budget before you tell us that the only options are to cut teachers or to cut schools. Thank you.
We have one additional speaker, Wendy Gorski. Wendy, you are now closing us out for the evening. Thank you so much. We welcome you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Please provide your comments.
I have 4 children in the district, one with disabilities at Bolton, one at Riverside, one at Westland High, and one at Rosemont. We moved here from Alaska for the inclusion district, so my son could be treated like a human. We went through school closures in Alaska right before I left, and I just want to tell you, I really want to tell the Wilsonville folks, I am so sorry that somebody has put in your head that it's us against you. I want to tell you how it looked. I want to tell you how it looked at a different district under different leadership. So the first thing that we got was the entire district got surveyed, and they put every option on the table. The administration said, this is our recommendation, but they didn't restrict all the options. So they said, do you want Mandarin? Do you want preschool? Do you rank these as your top 10? And they were ranked. And as a person at a school that was going to be closed, I saw 60% of 8,000 respondents said my school wasn't as important. And I knew that I lost, and it was a democracy, and I was okay with it. And then there was another survey, and it had a reduced amount of options. And then there was another survey, and it had an even more reduced set of options. And every step of the way, I felt like my voice was heard, and it was weighed against other people's, and I was okay with it. And then they gave us the impact analysis. So what you guys don't know is what we've been asking for since the very beginning is, how is this going to impact other schools? Is my son, who needs a full-time para, is he going to go to another school, and will those paras follow him, or are you going to cut them? Because right now it says you're going to cut them, and the paras at the receiving school are going to have my son, who's an escapist, and he's non-speaking, so he communicates through behavior, are they going to have to deal with that? And are people going to look at my kid and say, he shouldn't be here? He should be in a separate room, because that's what happened in Alaska. And I hear it now. Inclusion's not working here. There's not enough support. So what we want to know is we want to hear everybody's voices. We want you to know how many kids are coming into your schools and how many paras are following them. And are teachers going to still be cut in those schools? And what are class sizes? So then we came into a room, we sat down and they said, if your house is here, this is what your bus route is, and this is what your new school is, and this is what the grades and sections are, and this is how many classes, and you know where your neighborhood was go. And that was months before the vote. Everybody had time to internalize it. So we're not against you, and we're not doing this, and we will close our school if it's literally the best thing. But under this leadership that's like constantly dividing us, it does not feel like that. So that's all.
I want to thank you. First of all, thank you to everyone. Oh, if you would like to speak, I need your. Do we have the? He was a principal. I like to tease him about it all constantly. Wait, before you start speaking, I'll write down. Oh, okay. We just need your name and your city and all that great stuff. Geez, Louise, me and this mic.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to write their name down? Going once, going twice.
I'm sorry. I didn't know
Jenna Seymour.
I was going to speak tonight.
All right, Jenna. It's all right, Jenna.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Jenna. My boys and I grew up here, or my brothers and I grew up here in this district. I went through Wilsonville schools. I graduated from Wilsonville High School. I've moved all over the West Coast, Alaska, Canada. And we found ourselves back here. I have 3 boys that all attended Stafford. Our family, through COVID, sold our home. We packed up our entire life into a 10 by 20 snow machine trailer and moved to Anchorage, Alaska. I think it's kind of interesting. Somebody else from Alaska just spoke. We had amazing family adventures up there, but what I had hoped for in a new start in a new school for my kids, the grass wasn't greener on the other side. We also had these major issues with budgets, and school sizes or class sizes were 32 to 35 plus in an elementary level classroom. There was no teacher help, no support. It was an absolute zoo. I would drop my kids and they would cry morning after morning going to school because it was so overwhelming to them. So I ended up pulling my kids from the school. The learning environment, it wasn't conducive. I shared that there was not enough support for the teachers, and there was some major behavioral challenges that I wasn't willing to subject my kids to anymore. So 2.5 years ago, my oldest, he said, "Mom, I want to go back to Westland, and I want to attend high school with all of my childhood friends." And this was an absolute dagger to a mother's heart, that your child is barely 15. He had just turned 15, and he wanted to move 2,500 miles away from his family. And it was so hard, but there was a sense of peace that I had about this, because I knew the families that my kid was going to be surrounded by. My son's roots and foundations that he had during the time at Stafford were so unique and extremely special. They had a list of wonderful teachers: Miss Kavanaugh, McNeil, Hochul, Mellon, Gilkey, Eaton, Schechter, Mrs. Vasilopoulos, and Malin smile every day as we would drop kids off in the front office. And so anyway, fast forward. I now have 2 high schoolers, and where we're at, I have a 6th grader at Rosemont. And I've been doing the school limbo thing for 5 years now, since 2020.
I'm tired. It's exhausting, but I wanted to go to the meeting on Monday just to learn more and support friends who are in these tough situations. But I believe that this is an absolute mismanagement of budget and planning. My husband was involved in the frog pond development here with the Street of Dreams home development. And back then we questioned the building of Frog Pond. And I know about the construction, and it was a nightmare with a contractor and yada, yada. But we have these beautiful schools that school costs 45 million. The new ATHE costs nearly 80 million. And these mistakes that are approved by our leadership is costing teachers livelihood. Teachers and families have had the rug pulled out from underneath of them. And all these kids and their siblings are being affected. And the timing after the bond is baffling to me. You have so many well-educated people in this room and many who spoke on Monday. I know time is, but anyway, I tried to think outside the box, and I called the LO Tualatin and Sherwood District today and inquiring about some of the SPED programs and how they're funded and operating, and if they bill Medicaid. I can email this stuff to you.
Email the board. Yes.
But
Thank you so much.
okay.
Yes.
Anyway.
Thank you.
I have some ideas, and so
You can please feel free to email the board. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks.
I wanted to read an announcement, and then after I read this announcement about our December 8th board meeting, all of the board members have just some statements we'd like to give, including Chair Sloop, who's still listening. So on December 8th, Monday, December 8th, we're going to have a regular board meeting. So we've held listening sessions and in both Westland and Wilsonville. And so next we're going to hold our regular board meeting on Monday, December 8th at the district office, and the meeting starts at 6 o'clock. There will be public comment for those folks who haven't had the opportunity to address the board at the 2 listening sessions, or if you have additional feedback you would like to provide. It's important to note that there's limited parking at the district office. So if you'd like to provide virtual public comment, you can also contact Kelly Douglas to sign up 24 hours in advance. We are going to hold a special board meeting, and this is all going to be online as well. We're going to hold a special board meeting on December 18th at 4:30 p.m. at Athey Creek Middle School with public comment, followed by the board deliberating on the superintendent's recommendations. So that's December 18th at 4:30 p.m. But we have a board meeting as well on December 8th. So next we will provide some statements. Just a moment, ma'am. We will not be answering questions in this listening format. However, all of the board emails are listed. I'm so sorry. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, it's late. I am not a night person, obviously. We will be able to answer your questions after this meeting. So if you'd like to stick around, you could ask us directly, or you could email us as well. I apologize to all of you. About my brain. All right. So next, we will be providing our board statements. Oh, yes. Chair Sloop, would you like to go first so you can go to bed? Chair Sloop. Are you there? Oh, here she is.
I'm here. It's after midnight. Yes, I will say something really brief. First of all, I appreciate the voices of everyone who spoke tonight. I hear you. I really do. It gave a broader perspective that was shared, and one that's just really affecting me is we are one district, and it just pains me to hear that the heart of our community is being divided. With any decision, we do as a board need to analyze real information. I do want to consider other options. Look at all programs, dig deeper into the significant increased costs within our budget. And then, as some parents have spoken about, is considering the impact of closing a school on class sizes, those schools that will be receiving students, the boundaries, the transportation, support services, what's the actual number in savings as well as costs. And then a decision that would be representative of the entire district must prioritize our student support services, preserve programs while maintaining fiscal responsibility. So thank you again, everyone, for speaking and sharing your thoughts, your frustrations, and concerns.
Director Shoemaker? Oh.
I have to be approved to speak into the mic over here. Yeah. Just a couple of quick comments. Many of the things that were said tonight, it struck me were things that we're saying to state legislators, that we are all saying to state legislators. There are really strong arguments for why we should support schools and why we should have small schools and why we should be allowed to have small schools. I'm going to say what I said earlier tonight. I'm not sure the state funds us at a level that will support small schools. If you tonight suggested that this is a manufactured problem, you lost me. You lost me at the beginning if you said that. This is a real problem and we have to have real solutions. I appreciate everybody who says, let's work on solutions and let's look everywhere. I think absolutely that's where we all want to be, but we can't suggest this isn't real. That's it. I'm out.
Director Wyatt?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming and for, speaking up and speaking out. Again, I know it's not everyone's comfortable space, but it's really important for us to hear from all of you. One thing that I've noticed, and this is an evolution, I think, in the community conversation, is really this understanding that a lot of this is all driven by our enrollment and our shrinking enrollment. And one thing I was reflecting on is the fact that this all started because of our board goal related to enrollment. And so I heard a lot of really great ideas and suggestions and recommendations from folks tonight about wanting to dig in deeper to why people are leaving, what are the reasons, where are they going, what can we learn from that, what are marketing campaigns that we could pursue. And so when we started off with this board goal back in July, the first step was to baseline, understand where we are with enrollment, which led us to the report that's showing the decline being steeper than we had previously thought. And so I can't speak on behalf of the full board, but I do think that despite this detour, I guess, in that goal, in seeing how it's affecting the budget, I do think we're really committed to following through on that qualitative and quantitative analysis related to enrollment and trends. And so for those of you who have offered, your ideas and suggestions, I think you can expect us to continue down this path because it is the driver of why we're here. The other thing that I wanted to share, on Monday, I talked a lot about trade-offs and about how, this isn't pitting one solution against another or one community against another, but it's just that really basic economic theory of trade-offs. And I heard a lot of that tonight, and I wanted to share just a couple that have jumped out at me. And I don't have a solution, or I don't think there's an answer to this, but I just want to share some of those give and takes that I'm hearing from different comments this evening. I definitely heard from folks that they want to stop the instability. They want a quick and decisive answer. They want to stop having, waking up in the middle of the night with a pit in their stomach. But then we're also hearing from folks that want to slow things down and they want to add an additional timetable. We heard from folks that they want to seek alternative creative solutions. They want to find new ways to potentially solve programs. But then we have heard that we have people that don't want to fill out the survey, so we can think about alternative ways, to continue to offer the Chinese dual language program. We hear from people that this idea that school closures, school changes are traumatic and that we don't want this to happen to our kids. But then we also hear about our kids who are in the most unstable situations that would be most affected if schools don't close, but the number of teachers serving them does. I've heard people say that we didn't do anything about the solutions that we talked about in January. But then I've heard from a lot of great people who volunteered on our dual language and preschool outreach, and then also have set up a foundation that is off and running like gangbusters. And then lastly, one thing I've heard over the 2 campaigns that I've run this year is control your spending, watch your spending, align your spending with your needs. And then now, as we think about what are our number of students, what are our number of buildings, what do we need to serve them, we say, let's not pay attention to spending in that way, let's pay attention in a different way. So I'm just pointing these out because it just adds to the complexity of where we are. But going back to what I said at the start, fundamentally, we're answering the policy question, how do we fill a $10 million hole in our budget? And so these are all things that will keep me up at night. These are all things that can be answered by the information requests we've made, and things that I know that we'll be able to share back with you as we continue to deliberate on this. So thank you.
Director Salvaggio.
Thanks. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and thanks for constructive solutions. I do want to echo a little bit what Director Shoemaker said. This is not a manufactured problem. I think it's very obvious to all of us that the timing was, to put it very mildly, less than ideal. Because I was out there touting the bond, selling that to a lot of you guys, and I hope that you can trust me when I say that we did not know that this would happen, and I hope that you can trust the district staff that we didn't know this was coming down the road. And it's okay if you don't, but I'll say that anyone that wants to make any kind of allegations of criminal fraud, John Wentworth has offices in Oregon City. That's the place to bring that up, not in a public forum like this. The fact of the matter is that, like Director Wyatt said, there's a lot of give and take when it comes to timing and transparency, and it's just welcome to democracy time here. I know that just having these conversations are really, really difficult on students and families, but I also want to thank the district staff for bringing this to not only our attention, but to your attention as soon as we knew what was going on. We don't have the flow analytics report completed yet, but as soon as they got the top lines, they said there's going to be a problem when we get the full report. They didn't wait. It would have been the easiest thing in the world for them to say, we don't have the full report. Let's just bury this until that comes out. So transparency is sometimes a double-edged sword. We are trying to put out as much information as possible as soon as we have it. And I hear people rightly saying, we got all these listening sessions, we don't know what the solutions are, and it's very, very frustrating. And yes, it is frustrating for us too. But the fact of the matter is that what you're seeing here is the process. In this room, in the listening session on Monday, we don't get together outside of these meetings and deliberate. Even just kind of putting our stuff in the room when we came, I think there were 4 of us together in the room, and I will admit that I started to say something like, you know what I was really impressed about, and Superintendent Ludwig says, don't talk about policy, because we do that in front of you. You're seeing that happening in real time right here. And so I know that can be raw and ugly and very frustrating, and it's very, very difficult to sit through, especially when your kids' schools are on the line. And I really appreciate and respect everyone who's taken the time to sit through it, because it's not easy for you and it's not easy for us, but thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. The first thing I need to do is offer an apology, which is not going to be enough to the Stafford PTSA. Stafford is my school this year, and I did go to the Stafford PTSA, and I did speak about the bond. And I am apologizing because I absolutely did not know about this before I spoke at that PTSA meeting, and I'm apologizing because we are going through this now and it is awful. And so I am so sorry to the Stafford community, and I know this is terrible. I mean, we don't come into this. We don't come into the school board thinking, oh yeah, there's going to be, this terrible budget deficit. It is gut-wrenching, and I am very surprised that we are here again this year. But like we have all said, we are facing this $10 million shortfall, and I've told all of you, and I am trying my best to be very transparent, that I'm really concerned about teachers. And it is awful that we feel this divide between communities. It is awful. And that we feel that there's like this loss of teachers on one side, or this ballooning classroom size on one side, and that it's not being experienced on the other. So, oh my goodness, I know we all want to go home. I'm going to quit talking. I'm going to thank everyone for coming. Please email us. I know I would like to apologize for not getting back to all of you in a timely manner. Thank you for your patience. We will see some of you on December 8th, and we will see some of you again on December 18th. Thank you so much. I'm sure some of us will be sticking around so you can come up and ask your questions in person, get our email addresses. Thank you. Good night. Oh, good night. Oops, sorry.